Tuchel's team so far.
You've just got to wait till they play better opposition and see how they do and how his in-game management is and which players turn up. One thing is for sure is that Harry Kane looking the way he is a huge plus.
Meanwhile, we're told Jordan Pickford has established himself as one of England's greatest ever goalkeepers, if not the greatest. Ben Foster says the Everton man has resolved what was once a problem position.
I just think that his level of consistency, especially for England, but even for Everton as well, the way that he goes about his business for Everton now, you know you're going to get a 7 out of 10 from him.
Graham Potter has confirmed he'd be open to the Sweden job after their previous manager was sacked, calling it a fantastic opportunity. The former West Ham boss says he still has feelings for the country, having managed the Swedish side Östersunds for 7 years. Daniel Kristoffersson is a football journalist based in Stockholm.
He's been a great coach and manager here in Sweden. He has a very good reputation. When he was when they asked him before and he said no, there was no one in his supporter in Sweden would think that they will had a chance to get Graham Potter.
Brentford's Anthony Malambo has been ruled out for the rest of the season with an ACL injury. The midfielder has played just 45 minutes in the Premier League after moving from Feyenoord over the summer. Spurs have confirmed Fabio Paratici is back as one of 2 sporting directors, as we reported back in August. The Italian will work alongside Johan Langer. Paratici has now served a ban for his role in a false accounting scandal at Juventus. And at the Women's World Cup, the rain has come to England's rescue in Colombo. Nat Sciver-Brunt's side was 79 for 7 when the covers came on after 25 overs in their meeting with Pakistan. England lost 5 wickets inside the first 10 overs. And as always, there's plenty more on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel.
Yes, this is Kickoff on talkSPORT. I am Hugh, Woozencroft, and England are on their way to the World Cup. Are they making the right strides under Thomas Tuchel? Which players are a shoo-in? Who's got big work to do to guarantee their spot? We'll ask why the media are attempting to put a target on Jude Bellingham's back when he didn't even play. All of the England chat coming in the opening hour, so get involved on 03717 22 3344. From 8 p.m, we're going to have a really interesting hour-long Grassroots refereeing special. Is there a crisis at that level of the game as the amount of abuse towards officials gets louder? How do we get more officials in the game? What is the experience like? We need your help. Give us the best and worst of being a grassroots referee, and we'll also discuss Donald Trump's latest threats to move World Cup games next summer. If you're in Boston or the USA at large, what on earth is going on? Alongside me, FA Cup winner Scott Minto. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT. Hello, hope everybody is well. I'm feeling good this evening. Scott Minto alongside me, the former Chelsea and West Hammer. Always a compliment. I mean, you're one of, I've got to say, the best looking blokes at talkSPORT. You know? So coming from you, I'm going to take that. Thank you very much.
I'll take that coming from you as well, mate. You okay?
You know, I try my best. England looking good last night as well.
Very good.
5-0 victory away in Latvia last night. Of course, live here on talkSPORT. Gordon, Ezra, 2 goals from Kane as well, an own goal in that. But England qualify for the World Cup next year. Let me just put it out there. In the United States, Canada and Mexico. You might not have heard the words Canada and Mexico today because all the USA puns look good on the back pages. But it is in 3 countries next year. A little bit. I'm a pedant. You all know I'm pedantic anyway, but there you go.
I was in Guadalajara in July, actually, on holiday. I had a little picture taken by the stadium.
Tell me what it's like, because Guadalajara is the place that I want to go to most in the World Cup next summer.
Well, we won't get too personal. Let's just say we went on a family holiday. The missus' best mate is Mexican. We stayed in Puerto Vallarta for about 2 weeks,
and then we pronunciation.
and then she lives in Guadalajara. So we went to Guadalajara for 5 days. I said, look, I've got to have a picture in front of the stadium, and it was literally the last night before we came back to England. We said, and very kindly, one of the guys took me on a 20-minute drive and took the photo. The stadium is magnificent, by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just gets the juices flowing, doesn't it? That pronunciation alone. I want to be in onomatopoeia or whatever you just said. I want to be there next summer at the World Cup. England will be. I don't know about Guadalajara, but they'll certainly be in either the United States, Canada, or Mexico. The first European nation to book their trips. So congratulations to Thomas Tuchel and the team. We haven't even conceded a goal in qualifying so far. What did we learn? Let's start with last night's game itself, the 90 minutes. What did we learn from it, do you think?
I think we learned both individually and as a team we've got players who can step in. If the big chat is, and we'll come on to it whenever you want to, about that. I believe there's almost a fork in the road at the moment where we're seeing players playing really well for England. I mean, let's be realistic, first of all. The games that we played so far, we should be dominating and we should be playing well, and we shouldn't really be. I mean, not conceding a goal is very good. We could easily have done that, but we haven't. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It's a group that we absolutely should have dominated. We have dominated, but from an individual point of view, Harry Kane looking as important as ever. In midfield, I mean, it's great to see Morgan Rogers playing as well as he has. Elliot Anderson too, looking like a proper England international. Ezri Konsa, I think, has done superb, to the point where Mark Gurhey and John Stones, I think, are our number one central defensive partnership, but he could step in and do really well and could do a job at right back on top of that. And Jordan Pickford, I think, he never seems to make a mistake. He's made one mistake that's led to a goal for England, and we'll talk
in
to
80
him.
caps.
Absolutely. But from a team point of view, again, we have to be realistic about the teams that we've played, but we look like a team. And I think that's really important as well. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of it's coming home and all that malarkey.
I think a few are getting ahead of themselves. The only thing that I think I would notice, not just necessarily about last night's game, but maybe a few of the qualifiers so far, I think England are winning games because they have better individuals. Quite clearly, our quality of player is higher than the opposition. Yeah, okay, there's a good structure that's beginning to emerge under Thomas Tuchel. I like what he's doing, but you don't watch England's games and think, wow, they're doing something that I think is going to trouble the best nations in international football. The point, though, is they are progressing. They're on a journey. Obviously, the manager's just taken over. The team is just coming together. So the big bonus for me is, even though I'm not yet looking at the finished article, I don't think any of us should expect that, we are seeing steps in the right direction.
Well, what is the finished article? Because my finished article is going in a different direction to what I'm seeing at the moment for England.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, look, I think Harry Kane is our most important player, but Jude Bellingham is our best player. And I find it fascinating that even after only 100 minutes for Real Madrid, that Jude Bellingham wasn't at least picked in the squad and to help create that culture. Harry Kane...
We're going to talk about Bellingham in depth. 7:30. So I want everyone's involvement in this. So if you've got a view, my view on Bellingham is a little bit like there's almost too much focus on him, but we're going to talk about him in more depth at past. You've got a view on it, 03717 22 3344. You did mention Harry Kane there, so let's touch on him, because you said Bellingham is our best player, Harry Kane is our most important player. Is Harry Kane better than ever right now, do you think?
Well, he was asked that last night, wasn't he? And he sort of didn't answer it, but what you would say is, for club and country... And I saw the game, I worked in the game, Bayern Munich-Chelsea, and he was man of the match by a million miles. Not only did he score, and he was brilliant at number 9, he was brilliant as a number 10. He even dropped in and played like a number 6 at times. I think when you've got that type of Harry Kane, he is someone who could take us to the promised land. But again, we're at a part of the season where... It's not that it doesn't matter, because you are trying to, again, create that culture and create that kind of momentum under Thomas Tuchel. But it's about what happens in the World Cup. I mean, listen, Thomas Tuchel was brought in purely for the World Cup quarter-final, semi-final and final. Well, that's ultimately what it's all about. So we need a fit and firing Harry Kane in July, not right now. But at this moment in time, the reason why I say he's our most important player, because I think ultimately the most important thing is to score goals. but I also think the goalkeeper position is very underrated and not given enough credit. But I think the drop from Harry Kane, even to Ollie Watkins, and I rate Ollie Watkins a lot, is bigger than Jude Bellingham to another number 10. So for that reason, I think he's our most important player.
He's, for me, certainly better than ever. Is he our most important player? I think for the reasons you outlined, I have to agree. The drop off to the next player, very good player. England have a lot of very good players, but he is amongst the world's best, probably 2 or 3 centre forwards in the world right now. I do think he's almost a lesson to players playing in England at the moment. He plays for a massive club. He's the man in the Bundesliga. He scores goals for fun. I'm sure he's enjoying, and I mean this to no disrespect to Tottenham, but I'm sure he's enjoying his career more than ever right now. I know Tottenham fans will be saying, well, incredible things happened when he was at Spurs. But I actually think the lack of intensity in game time in Germany compared to here is probably the reason that he's enjoying it most, because at his age and where his body is right now, this is probably what he needs, which is why we're seeing, I think, such a consistency of, he always scored goals, but the level of performance from minute 1 to minute 90 that we're seeing from Harry Kane right now is why I think he's better than ever. Not just he's scoring goals, that's great, but his overall impact on the game, because he doesn't have to do as much. Yes, he plays for a better team in Bayern Munich who are winning titles in a league which doesn't have as much, week to week competition as the Premier League does. But actually, I think he just gets a little bit more rest. So when he comes to the England camp, we are seeing a fresher Harry Kane, especially, like I say, given his age. Yeah,
look, I mean, I don't disagree with you. What I would say is in the Euros last year, he wasn't quite the player that we thought he could be. And actually, I think a lot of us thought that he perhaps should have been dropped or at least taken off a lot earlier than when he was. And he was at Bayern Munich for that season. Was he carrying an injury? We don't know. But I just think he's never been lightning quick. So it's not as if it's the pace he's relied on. I still don't think, despite him scoring all the goals for Spurs, all the goals for Bayern Munich, all the goals for England, he's given enough credit. No. Honestly, I think his awareness, his ability to drop into little pockets of space, to turn, to assist as well as to score, I'd only really compare him from what I can remember in my lifetime to Wayne Rooney. You look at Gary Lineker, look at even Alan Shearer, Robbie Fowler, Ian Wright, Michael Owen. They're out-and-out goal scorers. Alan Shearer was a little bit more than that, but he wasn't a number 10 as well. He wasn't someone who could drop into those little pockets of space in the way that Wayne Rooney did, in the way that Harry Kane can. And he's getting towards his, early 30s now, and yet he's still looking as good as ever. So, absolutely, I think it's not just this particular tournament, but the next tournament where I think we got a better chance of winning than this particular World Cup, just purely because of the conditions. I think he could be England's number 1 for, another 3-4 years.
One little bugbear. I said I was in a good mood. This is the first of the evening.
Go on.
Listening to callers today on talkSPORT saying that, what do we learn from these games? What's the point of having qualifiers against these teams? It's another 5-0 win. World Cup qualifying is about everyone in the world getting the opportunity to prove that they deserve to be at the World Cup. That's it. So you have to play minnows. It just is what it is. Now, we're going to talk about preparation for the World Cup a little bit later. There's a reason England haven't played top nations for a while, and that's because they found themselves bottom of their Nations League group and dropped down into the second tier. Otherwise, like we saw with Scotland last year, they got to go and play against Spain and play against Croatia and play massive teams because they kept themselves in the top tier in the Nations League, got themselves there, then kept themselves there. England dropped down. Yes, we're going to be back in the top level of the Nations League soon. It means that it's been a while since we played a top tier nation. So fans are maybe feeling a little bit of like, what's going on here? We only seem to play minnows at the moment. We're going to be back to playing top nations after the World Cup next year. Yeah. In the meantime, between here and the World Cup, we got to get ourselves some games against really high quality opposition.
You and I were discussing this beforehand, and I think it's absolutely crucial that we play in our friendlies as top teams as possible. Because if we just play teams that, again, we can steamroller or even win 2-0 or something, then that's not really going to test us. This World Cup qualifying group hasn't really tested us. We now want to win the World Cup. That's the reason why Thomas Tuchel's been brought in. That's the next step on from what Gareth Southgate has achieved or had achieved. We have to be playing top teams and not at Wembley, please. We're not going to be playing in conditions anywhere near like in England at Wembley. Let's forget about the money side of things. Let's just try and go And even if we play in America or even Mexico, even in Guadalajara, let's play in conditions that can get us used to it as quickly as possible, because that's the aim, to win the World Cup. And if we do, the money will come.
So, this hour on talkSPORT, your views on England, firstly, on Thomas Tuchel and what he's brought to this team so far. How do you gauge the England manager? What more needs to be done if we're going to win the World Cup next year? And we're going to talk dead certs for England's starting 11 next summer and who's got work to do. If you've got a view on it, 03717 223344. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT. I'm Hugh Woozencroft. That's Scott Minto. We'll be back straight after this. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. I'm Hugh Woozencroft alongside Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto this evening, and we'll be taking your calls on England. What are we learning about Thomas Tuchel and his team so far? Are you impressed by qualifying for the World Cup at the earliest opportunity? And what needs to change before next summer? 03717 223344. You can drop us a text as well this evening on 81089. And remember, from 8 o'clock, we'll have a Grassroots refereeing special. If you've got experience at that level of the game, whether it's playing, fans on the side of the pitch, or officiating yourself, we want to hear from you too. So make sure you get in touch. 03717 223344. There is live football this evening. Chelsea in action in the Women's Champions League. The team news is in as they welcome Paris FC. talkSPORT's Ian Abrahams has the details.
And Sonia Bonpastor makes 2 changes to the side to beat Spurs at the weekend live on talkSPORT 2. Both at fullback, Nuskin and Baltimore come in for Niamh Charles, who drops to the bench, and Ellie Carpenter, who dropped out of the squad altogether. Can only assume that's because of injury. So it's Hampton in goal, Nuskin, Bourne, Brighton, Baltimore across the back. Captain Walsh and Cuthbert are 3 in midfield, with Beaver Jones up front, and Thompson and Canary Wrighting just either side of them. Worth pointing out a couple of names on the bench. Sam Kerr continues her recovery towards first team action by being on the bench tonight, and also for the second time after being on the bench at the weekend, so too does Lucy Bronze. A quick recovery after her injury at the Euros during the summer. Chelsea drew in Holland last week. They're expected to win here and win well tonight. It's Chelsea against Paris FC, and we start at 8.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Moose. Let's get an odds update next on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Get a free bet every week of the season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction. Minimum £5 bet. Conditions apply. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
And let's say good evening to Chris Wood. How are you?
Hey Hugh, hi Scott, how you doing?
Good, mate.
Well, I'm amazing, mate. We're going to win, 8 months away from winning the World Cup now.
Yeah,
Come on, how much money should I be putting on it?
What a feeling. Well, if you fancy England, we are 7-1. We're currently top price there. Spain are favourites at 4-1. France are in at 13-2. Brazil, who's sort of spluttered a little bit lately, they're 15-2. Argentina 8-1. We've had to cut Norway, actually. They're into 40-1. They seem to be hitting their stride. They got a lot up front at the moment. Obviously, Haaland, Sorloth, Odegaard just in behind. And so we saw a little bit of money on them, but that's the state of the market at the moment. England 7-1, and with the top price anywhere. So
I may have missed you saying it. I got a feeling about a certain Portugal.
Portugal, yeah, no idea. Sorry, they're 11-1. So I didn't actually mention them.
No. I just, FIFA made things happen for Messi last time around. Might be Ronaldo this time.
Oh, yeah, no,
I'm just putting it out there.
Hey, who knows?
What? I'm just saying, things went their way. Let's put it that way. Anyway, what about the World Cup squad? Who's going to make it? Who's going to be left at home?
Well, obviously a huge list of players. Saka, Rice and Kane, they're all sort of 1-16. They're basically on the plane. Where things get really interesting, I think, is like you were talking about Bellingham before. We're 1-4. He was like 1-20 before. He was like, barring injury, absolutely certain to be there. Now you sort of look at the way the squads have been and the way that Tuchel seems to be wanting to base, have this sort of togetherness. And we've pushed him right out. He's 1-4. Like Jordan Henderson's in there at 1-3. It's crazy that those two would be so close in price, sort of a few months ago. Elsewhere you've got Phil Foden, I think, is pretty attractive at 4-6. He's started the season very well. Obviously didn't make the last squad, but he can add something else. Mark Gay looks like he's going to be there as well. He's 1-8. It's all there. I mean, I've got the list in front of me. If there's anyone that you want to sort of talk about in particular. Cole Palmer, we still think he's going to go. He's 1-8. I think he is one player who he's been in those squads quite a lot, and he does give you something else. Like there's a definite role for him to play.
Marcus Rashford is the one that I was thinking of because Thomas Tuchel has said he needs to be a little bit more consistent. He's been talking about it himself last night. A few interesting words from Roy Keane on ITV as well. Does he have a chance the way he started at Barcelona?
No, absolutely. I mean, we've got him at 2-5. It looks short enough, but again, I think it's another one of those players. Like, are you going to take him, or are you? Names totally escape me.
Gordon,
the guys Jared Bowen. You're going to take Jared
Bowen,
Grealish. I think Rashford is the sort of player. You are probably going to put him on the plane before any of those. So we've got him in at 2-5 there.
Chris Wood, thank you very much. That was a look at the latest odds with Ladbrokes. It's 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Get a free bet every week of the season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction. Minimum £5 bet. Conditions apply. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
Well, we spoke about him a few moments ago. Let's hear from the England captain, Harry Kane, post-match after the 5-0 win over Latvia. He spoke to our England correspondent, Faye Carruthers, about the squad as a whole.
Yeah, just to continue what we've been doing. You know, I just spoke there about we've got some fantastic players still to come back. I think the competition's really high, and that's what you need going into any major tournament. And yeah, I know the guys who ain't here through injury or not quite fit, you know, will be itching to get back next month. And yeah, no matter who's here, I think we always have a great environment. I think we always have a great team ethic. And yeah, like I said, going into next summer, we've only got probably 6 games from now until the first game in the World Cup. So every camp counts, every training session, every game, and I think we're taking advantage of every moment right now.
Interesting to see how Thomas Tuchel manages the squad. I was thinking about this yesterday. The last 2 qualifiers now, they're meaningless, right? We're there. So do you use it as a squad environment where you bring more players and you actually take a look at some of those fringe players, the likes of Adam Wharton, for example, Jack Grealish? You actually give them an opportunity to kind of show you now in you know, it might have been 1 camp in March, the 2 friendlies. Now actually you get the opportunity over 2 camps to say, right, this is purely preparation for next summer. The next 2 games don't matter from a competitive standpoint.
I want to see from now on, now we've qualified, and we're always going to qualify.
Slimming it down.
Absolutely. What's our best 11? Tuchel, what is our best 11? And then I need you guys, I need to see them all working together and doing really well, because, you know, Elliot Anderson has come in and done well. Morgan Rogers has come in and done really well. Anthony Gordon, I thought, was superb last night. But we've got Jude Bellingham to come back. We've got Cole Palmer to come back. We've got possibly Phil Foden and Jack Grealish to come back. I want to see now, we've seen players who can step up and can do a job for England. I want to see what he thinks is our best 11, so actually you get those connections on the pitch.
In a strange way, qualifying so early has made things a little bit more awkward, because he's now got this second camp where, of course, all the conversation is about who's going to be on the plane, as opposed to, right, we need to qualify. So we can immediately start talking about players who are being picked with an eye to next summer, not about winning the next 2 games if we had needed to. No,
absolutely. And Hugh, you know, I think people underestimated or certainly didn't give Gareth Southgate enough credit. Now, I was critical of him in the last Euros, and I felt that, you know, we limped our way to the final and we're never going to win that, really. And Thomas Tuchel has been brought in, as I say, for the games now, the World Cup quarter-final, semi-final, final, and he's brought in to win it. I need to see, or I want to see, our best players playing together and playing well, because he's gone, I mentioned earlier about, you know, a fork in the road, and he's going down the route of continuity. Well, if he's going down that route, well, this squad and this international break couldn't have gone much better. 3-0, 5-0, and that one was away from home. So then, if we're going by what you're saying, we should carry on with the same sort of squad and same sort of team. But how can you do that? How can you not bring in a Jude Bellingham and a Cole Palmer if he's fit? And then you can argue Phil Foden's been brilliant and Jack Grealish as well for another month. Then you start to question that as well. I think we've been really good, but we have to be realistic about who we've played. So, listen, we limped our way. We lost to Senegal. We limped our games against Andorra. They weren't good, but the last 3 games have been very good performance-wise, scoring goals, not keeping clean sheets, not conceding. But really, do we think that this team in the quarter-final and the semi-final or final is going to go and win us the World Cup if you're not playing a Bellingham, if you're not playing a Palmer? So my point is, if they're fit, they're the players in the moments that define whether you win a trophy or not. You need to be having them in the side. So, yeah, I want to see those guys playing if they are fit.
We'll be talking about Jude Bellingham next. 03717 22 3344. Are the media trying to put a target on Jude's back? That's next here on talkSPORT.
cricket balls are red, baseballs are white, American footballs are brown, and tennis balls are yellow. We don't even think about it really, but the story behind the tennis ball is actually quite interesting and even involves Sir David Attenborough. I know, here's the tale. Tennis has its roots in 12th century France when people used to make balls from all sorts. Cork, wool, chalk, animal fur and even human hair. Uniformity was found centuries later when people started making balls out of something called vulcanized rubber, invented in the US. But the balls kept on breaking, so a British lawyer, who also loved tennis, suggested they put a flannel covering on the outside, and thus the tennis ball as we know it was born. One problem, it was either white or black. And when the controller of BBC Two, Sir David Attenborough, decided Wimbledon would be shown in colour on the BBC in 1967, no one could actually see the balls on telly. So the International Tennis Federation went away and created a new colour called Optic Yellow, which would show up without the need for a 4K LED display. Not that anyone had that in the 1960s, of course. Since then, all tennis balls have been covered in that material and have their trademark colour for that exact reason. Amateur tennis players and dogs worldwide are forever grateful. You could say the ITF aced it.
England's place in next summer's World Cup can be cemented here and now.
It's a very special moment. It's not daily business to qualify for World Cups.
Here's Gordon running quickly towards the edge of the penalty area. Right-footed effort is a beautiful goal.
That's my biggest goal in life, to play a World Cup for England. This one I've dreamed of as a kid.
Yeah, overall just happy to add to the team again today, and not just the goals, but the all-round game.
Kane runs up, hits it into the bottom left-hand corner. It's 3-0 to England. Dust off your passports, pack your suitcases. England are on their way.
Never take these things for granted. Celebrate like it's your first one, and then we move forward.
It's been incredible, the press. That side of the game's been magnificent.
England are scoring goals. They're keeping clean sheets. These are very good habits to get into in a World Cup year.
We will not stand still. We will try to improve and get everything going in November.
Rashford checks his second run. It's good goal, 5-0. Brilliantly struck. Played 6, won 6, scored 19, conceded none. The future is bright.
Oh yes, there's a party in the USA, Canada and Mexico next summer. Okay, let's be very specific about this. Trying to give respect to our Canadian and Mexican friends as well. Yes, good evening. You're listening to Kickoff. I'm Hugh Woozencroft alongside Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto. And yes, England won 5-0 last night away in Latvia. But as we know, they did so without Jude Bellingham. We're discussing him for the next 15 or so minutes. There's been a lot of talk about him this England camp. Why is that? Is there maybe too much focus on him, especially some of the words that Thomas Tuchel's had to say? Let's look ahead with the latest from Ladbrokes.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Get a free bet every week of the season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction. Minimum £5 bet. Conditions apply. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
This has been very concerning from the moment the England squad was announced. Thomas Tuchel was very clear as to why he left out Jude Bellingham. He'd barely played. He'd only started one game. Hadn't played a full 90 minutes. The manager wanted to leave him out. He felt he's undercooked. And I never thought he was going to be in this England camp for that exact reason. But once that explanation was given, I have been surprised by the level of conversation around Jude Bellingham during this England camp, especially from the media. Obviously, I'm a part of that media, so I'm not pointing fingers at everyone in this industry. Maybe people know something I don't. Maybe they want to create something. I'm not sure. Especially the back page after the first game that we won 3-0, saying, who needs Jude? Which I thought was an absolutely ludicrous back page, particularly given Harry Kane didn't play in that game. So why was it all about Jude Bellingham? I'm not sure. But I do feel there is now a narrative being created that England don't need Jude Bellingham. I think there is a narrative being created that he's very, very droppable. Much of a muchness between him and the other number 10s, if not Jude's actually behind them. And I don't mind having the football conversation. I think it's relevant to have the football conversation. But I do feel like there seems to be elements that are desperate to paint him as some sort of negative influence in the changing room and actually make him out to be some sort of, not necessarily a bad person, but certainly someone who, when he walks into a room, it isn't a positive effect. I don't know where that is coming from. I don't know why that is happening. England wouldn't have got anywhere last summer if it wasn't for Jude Bellingham. He might not be on form. He's obviously had surgery on his shoulder. He's clearly not physically where he needs to be. But this notion, this idea that England will be all right next summer without him, I think is fanciful. And again, before anyone says, well, he's droppable, I'd actually put him on the bench.
Would you?
I would play Cole Palmer as England's number 10. This is not me saying he has to start.
You can have 2 10s in a 4-1-4.
Okay, again, we should be able to have the football conversation. That's fine. But I've seen it before in previous years. We all have, with elements of the media and England players. And this idea that as time goes on, despite how certain people play in an England shirt, we're still going to paint them as being a negative influence. I don't want that to build up on Jude Bellingham's back. And it seems to be like, since Thomas Tuchel's come through the door, there are elements of the media and maybe within the England changing room as well that want to do so.
Yeah, well, he's mentioned it as well, hasn't he, with using the words that his mum was repulsed by his behaviour. So he's certainly not helped in that way. I mean, I would take slight issue with you. He was very clear that, yes, he said that Jude wasn't 100% fit, but actually he's also extremely clear in saying, but that wasn't the major reason why I didn't pick him. The major reason why was continuity, which is why I'm talking again. I go back to that fork in the road. He seems to be going down the route where this sort of international break was even better than the last one. And okay, Jude isn't 100% fit, but I go back to what I was saying a little bit earlier. If Harry Kane had played 100 minutes for Bayern Munich only, do you think he wouldn't have been picked in the squad? So I think there's a little message going out from Thomas Tuchel. Why? I don't know. From a media point of view, I mean, that headline was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Who needs Jude? Well, of course we need Jude, but to do it in a game where Harry Kane didn't play was even more ridiculous. So I wonder whether there's a little bit of mischievousness going on. I know that obviously in the summer he was only given interviews that he was fully obliged and contracted to do, and he said no to other ones. But I think he felt there was a little bit of criticism, going his way. I think.
So is this the media now trying to get their own back?
I wonder.
Oh, you're going to turn down interviews with us, so we're going to paint you as being a negative influence in the England changing room.
If that's, you know what the world is about now. For a lot of,
it's a power play.
I better be careful. I've got to be careful, sort of choosing my words. But for certain parts of the media, they want clickbait. They want to trying to get as many listeners, viewers, readers, or whatever they want.
I'll just hide my face.
I know, I know you're not like that, but. I think absolutely, let's have a proper football chat about it.
Yeah.
Let's not get ridiculous about who needs Jude, because we do need Jude. We need Jude Bellingham, and I actually would have him in my first 11. But the longer we don't have him in the first 11, and that's the point, he wanted to be in this squad. And yes, he wasn't 100% fit, but he could have played 45 minutes in each game. And what I don't get is you've only got 3 camps before you choose, including this one, before you choose the World Cup squad. Even if he couldn't play in any of them, and he could, why would you not have one of your leaders around to create that culture? So for me, for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure, Thomas Tuchel said what he said and he's taken that word back. But for me, he's sending a little message to Jude Bellingham. He said, you do it my way. If he's not doing it his way, I don't know what he's been doing. But it just seems really strange to me from a football point of view why you don't want your leader there when you've only got a few camps left.
I'm okay if people say that it's all in my head and I'm dreaming, but just do let me know. Am I inventing this, or are those that are trying to paint a target on the back of Jude Bellingham for an unknown reason? If a player is absent from a squad, there's so many more things for us to be talking about.
But Hugh, I do get the conversation because he's our best player.
Cool,
and he's bossed it, going to Dortmund, then Real Madrid, the biggest club in the world, and he's been absolutely superb. He's saved us at times, both in internationals, qualifiers, but also in the actual Euro itself, in tournaments. So the fact he is fit, he's just not 100% fit, and yet he's not picked. Off the back of what Thomas Tuchel said about him in the interview with Adrian and Piercy, I think there is a conversation to be had as to why. And that November selection and team selection, not just squad selection, is going to be fascinating.
So, is it the fact that the media are going after Jude Bellingham, or has Thomas Tuchel created a void which the media are filled with stories about him. You can have your say on talkSPORT 03717 223344. Let's go to a call. Sam is a Manchester City fan. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi, Sam. Very well indeed. Am I crazy, or are people trying to paint a target on Jude's back?
I don't think it's a target at all, in my opinion. I think that he is the most overhyped player in world football to date.
Scott?
What makes you say that then, Sam, considering what he's done for both club and country?
Club? What are we saying that? Because he plays for Real Madrid? Or
yeah, and he's won trophies and he's been one of the main men at the biggest club in the world.
But let's focus on an England perspective then.
You said he was one of the most... No, to be fair, I can't just let that slide. You said he was one of the most overrated players in world football and then went, let's just concentrate on England. I mean, I'll let you, but you're already losing the argument.
I'm more mean in the position he plays for England. But about sort of 7:15, we were saying, you guys were saying that he's the second or first most important player in that England squad. And I have to disagree completely. Yes, he's created some great moments for England fans. I will back that 100%. However, 90 minutes, or let's say 80 minutes, I am putting Palmer or Foden in that 10 over him every single day. The way Kane plays does not work with Jude Bellingham at all.
Why?
The way Kane drops in and receives the ball, you're saying about everybody seems to play that little bit deeper with Kane, always, because of how deep he drops in, correct?
You mean they push up more?
No. Watching England over the time, what did we say about Southgate? It's always boring because we play so deep, we don't really attack that much. That's due to Kane dropping back. With Bellingham, he likes to play pretty much alongside that striker. We need somebody pulling the strings a little bit deeper, where Foden and Palmer will play better than Bellingham.
Okay, I'm not quite... my argument to this would be, I'm not quite sure the point you were making then. Who's then going to be in the box to score the goals? Because Jude Bellingham is the one doing it, and Foden and Cole Palmer don't necessarily. They get in and around the box, but not in the box like Bellingham.
Which is why I prefer Bellingham from the 85th minute onwards.
The 85th minute onwards. 5 minutes.
Those last-minute goals.
See, the way I would look at it, Sam, is if you've got Harry Kane who's able to drop in, then that leaves a void to go in behind and someone to do that. And I think Jude Bellingham is that one to do that. You can also get one or both of the two wide players to do that. And I also think in the formation that Thomas Tuchel is playing in the 4-1-4-1, you can have Cole Palmer and Jude Bellingham as the two 10s, and they can play the 10s in a very different way. But if Harry Kane is going to drop in, you need someone to go in behind, and Jude Bellingham is the best one out there in terms of a central midfielder.
03717 223344. Why so much talk about Jude Bellingham? Your views on talkSPORT. We'll look ahead to what England need to do in terms of their preparations for next summer as well, and we'll hear from the England manager Thomas Tuchel straight after this. That was all thanks to Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org.
The Big Preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. Get a free bet every week of the season and a big boost every day. That's Ladisfaction. Minimum £5 bet. Conditions apply. 18+, gambleaware.org.
This Friday, Kieran Conway will put his British and Commonwealth middleweight titles on the line against undefeated George Liddard at York Hall. Great atmosphere for boxing. You can watch it live this Friday only on DAZN.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT. Hugh, Woozencroft and Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto with you this evening. Remember, from 8 o'clock, we'll be discussing grassroots refereeing. If you've got any experience of it, any incidents maybe that you've witnessed, we want to hear from you. 03717 223344. We'll be telling you about some officials in the game and how they've handled some of what they faced. We'll hear from the FA as well after 8 o'clock. An hour-long discussion, so make sure you're with us for that and contributing if you can. You can drop us a text as well on 81089 if you do officiate. But we were talking about England. We'll talk about how they prepare for the tournament, the World Cup next summer. We're talking a little bit about Jude Bellingham as well, and whether there's a target on his back. Chris is a Spurs fan who's given us a call. Good evening.
Good evening, chaps. Good evening, Scott. Good evening,
Chris.
Hugh. Yeah. Well, basically, I mean, I don't understand where all this negativity is coming from about Jude Bellingham. I mean, you know, he scored the opening goal against Serbia at the Euros. He scored an absolutely sublime goal against Slovakia that put us through to the quarters against Switzerland. So, I mean, this guy is playing for arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world. He has earned his right to be a little bit cocky. That's what, you know, so we've got to nurture this talent, man. I mean, actually, but for the record as well, I was going to say, I actually do think that this summer, next summer, rather, I should say, that we've got a much better chance of doing better at the World Cup under this guy, Thomas Tuchel, than we did under Gareth Southgate. And to be quite frank, if Gareth Southgate was still in charge, I don't think I'd watch the World Cup, to tell you the truth, in England. But honestly, I'm telling you now, he had 4 cracks at it. He had to go. He had to move on.
So Chris, I mean, Thomas Tuchel, it could be an in and out job. It looks like, you know, he's won major trophies before at club. He's not experienced it as a manager, and we'll have to wait and see how that goes in the tournament itself. But what would you do then with Jude? Would you be starting him? Would you be picking him in the squad and wanting that continuity of what's happened over the last 3 games?
Well, from what I've heard, again, I read it in the Daily Mirror and other newspapers, I think Jude Bellingham wasn't entirely fit for a while. He was still recovering from a soldier. So I can't say it.
Shoulder surgery, yeah.
Sorry, can't say it. He was recovering from surgery. Again, you only play players that are fully fit. You know, it's like Harry Kane. He was nursing an injury in the final. Cole Palmer should have started against Spain in the final. You know, if players are fully fit, then play them. But I think with Jude, maybe he wanted to get a rest. And let's face it, the teams we have played, Andorra, Latvia, Serbia, the dross of Europe, I should say, right? I mean, listen, look, you know, save your best man for the actual tournament. I mean, you know, we've won comfortably without Jude Bellingham. Now, all right, you could argue there's a case of saying, well, let's not take him at all. But I still think, really, yeah, all right, you don't have to start Jude Bellingham, but at least consider him for the squad and send him Harry Kane with his goal-scoring record. You'd be foolish not to consider him.
Chris, appreciate your call on talkSPORT this evening. I'm very passionate about England. Let's hear from the manager, Thomas Tuchel. He spoke to our correspondent, Faye Carruthers, about qualifying for the World Cup last night.
Yes, I'm very happy, and it's a very special moment. It's not daily business to qualify for World Cup. So now we made it, and we made it with 6 wins in 6 matches, and had another good performance, a top result. So yeah, we're very happy. Special moment.
What was the overall feeling? With a tiny bit of relief, as well as you know, right? Okay, next step now.
Yeah, a bit of relief, very honest, like to then push it over the line. I was a bit nervous today, but when we scored the first one and then the second one, I knew that we are on our way. And anyway, like the guys, we can trust them at the moment. They keep the thing going. They invest what they need to invest. And you see it on the pitch. It's very dominant. They like the hard work. They like to work for each other. So they enjoy being in camp, and it's, as you can see it in the results.
So he's doing a very good job so far. As I said earlier, on an upward trajectory. Obviously, he needs to refine the football. There's plenty more still to come from this England team if they are to go far next summer. But you can't really complain, certainly when it comes to qualifying so far. We had the defeat, obviously, didn't we, against Senegal after a poor win, if you can call it that, over Andorra. But preparations for next summer, I think, are very, very important. I spoke about the 2 camps now, changing in complexion, because although the next 2 games are competitive World Cup qualifiers, because we're already there, I think it is all now geared around getting us ready for the tournament next summer. We'll have another camp in March before the squad is finally announced, and then another couple of warm-up games probably taking place in North America before the tournament gets underway next summer. So March and November, very, very important for Thomas Tuchel. When it comes to March, we can actually select our opponents. 2 friendlies for England. It was reported last week that England want to face South American and Asian opposition as part of their World Cup preparations, and they have discussed hosting friendlies against Uruguay and Japan. It's understood there is a big possibility of Wembley games against both. Both of those teams have already qualified. England have mainly faced European opposition since Tuchel took charge at the start of this year, and they want to test themselves against different styles before the World Cup. I would say stop worrying about money and finances, stop worrying about Wembley, and take these players away. We rarely do that. England rarely play away from home, particularly when it comes to friendly games. They make a lot of money at Wembley, as we know. Big stadium, big crowd, not really cheap tickets when it comes to England. But I would love to see them go to South and Central America for a week and play 2 games over there in a certainly different temperature, different atmospheres, probably going to be very, very hostile atmospheres because a big scalp against England will be massive for them, and they'll get that World Cup feel, I think, before they go off for it could be 8 weeks, 7.5 weeks next summer if they go all the way. I think getting them into a different environment could be very, very important preparation.
I just think we need to try and now we have qualified and we have got those 2 games in November. Again, I go back to it's going to be fascinating to see the squad that he picks, because we've done it now. We've qualified. So now we need to think, how are we going to win the thing? So we need to start already a little bit early. He's got not excuse, but reason to say, look, we still got to try and make sure we do qualify. That's done now. But in terms of the March ones, we absolutely have to try and recreate not just the teams we're playing against in the quarterfinal, semi-final, final, but also the conditions that we will be in as close as you possibly can. So, yeah, I mean, look, Uruguay and Japan, they're both in the top 20 in terms of the FIFA rankings. I want to see top 10. That's what I would prefer. And don't go down the Wembley route. Again, speculate to accumulate. I know there's no guarantee we're going to win the World Cup, but what is the best chance of us winning the World Cup? It's replicating, getting our players to be in a position where once it actually comes, it doesn't just hit them and say, can't handle this heat, can't handle this humidity, can't handle the teams that we're playing, because it's a massive jump up from the qualification group that we've already played. So that's what I want to see. Just try and play the best teams we can possibly do that. I think that will give us the best chance to win the trophy itself. And if we do, the money will follow.
Let me very quickly read out some of the messages that have come in on 810-89. The history of the media. This says Hoddle, Gascoigne, Rashford, etc. Even Clough. The media has tried to destroy Mavericks over the years. Bellingham, Sterling, Rashford. The media seem to have a problem with them all. This one says, I wonder what the common denominator is. The reason fans don't rate Bellingham is because they don't watch him. This says, if you play for City, Arsenal or Liverpool, these conversations wouldn't happen. He's one of the best in the world. This conversation is a joke, surely. That's from Adam. This says, I really don't get it. Bellingham's a generational talent. Where has the narrative come from? It's beyond belief. This talk about his attitude is just a reflection of the snowflake generation. Thomas Tuchel, I'm not sure if he's that generation, but there you go.
No, he's definitely not, but I understand the point he's making.
He's a winner. He wants to win. England have needed a bit of grit in the team for a long time. Whether he's an 8 or a 10, he needs to be in the team. An all-round fantastic player. And this one, totally different opinion from Jay, says Jude just doesn't fit in the team, not in a footballing way. Imagine the dressing room when a young lad with a big ego who doesn't even play in the Premier League comes in with an attitude. Thank you for your messages on 810-89. For more England fallout, by the way, Adrian Durham, Stuart Pearce and Jim Proudfoot bring you it all live from Riga, Latvia, following the 5-0 win that sealed it on the talkSPORT Daily podcast. They'll discuss the England fans' banter with Tuchel, whether Anthony Gordon's a first name on the team sheet, and the difference in style of England under Thomas Tuchel versus Southgate. So make sure you check it out. The talkSPORT Daily is on all podcast platforms now. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. And up next, our special hour. Is there a crisis in grassroots refereeing?
Everyone knows there are 20 managers in the Premier League, yeah? Well, actually, no. Around 3/4 of them are not managers. The terms manager and head coach are often used interchangeably to describe Premier League bosses, but they're actually two different jobs. So let's explain how and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025, there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
Hello and welcome to the second hour of kickoff here on talkSPORT. We're going to turn our attention towards the Grassroots game. For the next hour, myself alongside Scott Minto and with the help of some special guests are going to be asking the question whether there is a crisis in refereeing in the Grassroots game. We're going to find out if there's a worrying spike in verbal and physical abuse towards officials that's having a major impact on amateur football, refs quitting and games going unplayed. We're going to hear from the Football Association as well, who are in the last year of a 3-year strategy with the aim of improving refereeing at the grassroots level. There have been positive signs, but are you or your children struggling to complete the season due to a lack of qualified referees within your area? And if you are an official, tell us what it's like for you. You can send us a WhatsApp or call us on 03717 223344 and you can drop your text to 81089. I am Hugh Woozencroft, as I mentioned, FA Cup winner Scott Minto alongside me, and we've been joined in the studio. I haven't seen you for a while. Hello, my friend Sam Ellard, talkSPORT reporter, is here.
Good evening, guys. Looking forward to the next hour. Now, throughout the past couple of weeks, talkSPORT has been looking at some case studies to paint the picture for you all of refereeing of the Grassroots game. Now, during the 23-24 seasons, the season before last, there were over 2,500 charges issued for allegations of serious misconduct. It was a 13% increase on the previous season. There was also a 70% increase in the number of charges issued for allegations of discrimination. But overall, referee numbers remain strong. There has been an increase in the total number of Grassroots match officials by 20%, and there are now over 37,000 referees in England. So the next hour, we are going to hear from the Football Association, who, Hugh, as you said, are in the last year of a 3-year strategy with the aim to improve refereeing at grassroots level. I spoke with Nathan McGill. He's the head of referee development from the FA. He's going to join us and give us, tell us how the strategy works, what's good, what's not so good. I'll go into some specifics. I like the use in particular of body cams. The FA became the first football association to introduce the trial body cams to grassroots referees. So yeah, he's got all the information there for us. The current head of ref support, Martin Cassidy, will join us too for his insight. We've got the talkSPORT dugout referee research findings, which our audience and people on the talkSPORT website have been getting involved. From 9, we love to hear from the audience, people that have played grassroots football, refereed grassroots football, perhaps been a parent on the side of the pitch who maybe have said and shouted some stuff they shouldn't done. But I want to start, guys, with a really powerful interview with Harvey Anir, a referee who tells us about his awful ordeal last year, refereeing a game of football where he was knocked unconscious while refereeing. Let's hear from Harvey, who explains everything.
Yeah, it was a normal game. I think the away side were about 3 or 4-0 down at half time. I've had a bit of grief from the away side. A simple foul I've given in the midfield. One of the team players has actually said something under their breath. I've called him over to have a quiet word. Went to give him a sin bin for what he said. He's directly looked at me in the face and told me he was going to slap me. Very confronted, right in my face, said it. So I put my red card and then found myself unconscious on the floor. As I've woken up, had no idea what happened. People said that wasn't the person that actually confronted me. It was a person that came from behind, attacked me, hit me twice in the head behind. Had no clue, and then kicked me, or people said it was a volley. He volleyed me in the head 3 times. Was going on. It happened, I think I wrote down, 17th of November, 2024, and they still haven't charged the actual person. So that's nearly a whole year now. Yeah, as I said, the Surrey FA were brilliant. The league were brilliant at the start. The longer it got on, the less messages I received, the less, checking up. I got an email from the police saying we are still waiting for a email from one of the lads at Surrey FA for his statement. So I had to message the guy I had been in contact from the Surrey FA to get his guy to send over his original statement because they weren't answering his emails, which I thought, you're supposed to, as a Surrey FA, you're where I go to. You should be, you should be straight on those statements. You should be sending over straight away. I shouldn't have to chase you. And I'm getting told from the police, yeah, I've been waiting a whole month. I still haven't received a statement.
There's a lot for us to pour through there, of course. The incident itself, how it's been dealt with by separate bodies, of course. And obviously, I don't know if you've got a response from the Surrey FA, but currently they're not here to defend how they've acted within that. We have, if you like, one side of the story. I don't know. Officials out there might tell me it's a common story, so do drop us a text on 81089 if you've had something similar or an incident happen to you while you've been officiating, how that has been subsequently dealt with, because it'll be really interesting to see if that plays a part in retaining officials.
Yes, so as Harvey says there, the player got suspended from the game for 8 to 9 years, but the police still haven't charged the person, and we are nearly a year on. That happened on November the 14th. That interview was done, by the way, by talkSPORT's Max Scott. I don't know how you guys felt listening to that for the first time, but the first time I listened to that, Scott, I had chills running through my body. You got a young lad there who's getting up on a weekend morning, wants to referee, earn a couple of quid, have a run around, and he makes the decision and he gets attacked from behind to the point where he's knocked unconscious. It's absolutely sickening, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to describe it. I mean, look, I love Premier League football, but actually grassroots football is far more important just because of how many millions are involved in it. You know, when you think about hundreds of thousands of games going on throughout a weekend. So this is actually what it's all about for the average person who can't get to be a professional footballer. And then you've got the referees who perhaps just want to go down a different route, not necessarily playing for whatever reason, but they want to be the referee. If you don't have a referee, you don't have a game. Now, these young lads, and, you know, I don't know how old he was there. Funny enough, my niece is actually training to be a qualified referee now as well. She's done the course. She's done 3 games, I think. She's got 2 more to do. And she's 15 years of age. And she's very calm. I'm also a president of the team that I used to play for back in the 80s, the Sunday League side, Orpington Rovers. And I've spoken to them about this today as well. And they've said they've had a few issues. But the sickening is absolutely spot on. And the fact that we're nearly a year down the line and we still don't know, Surrey FA and the police as well, that they haven't nailed this by now. You know, this is what it's all about for grassroots. And if you don't have the referees and the people who are able to manage our game, then you have no game. It's as simple as that. And who's to say that this guy can't just register in another name? I don't know how it works.
What he goes on to say in the interview, yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, so that was sort of Harvey there explaining what happened that day and kind of what happened in the weeks leading on. But we are nearly a year on from that incident, and Harvey explains what the last year has been like for him and his future in refereeing.
I was kind of debating, you know, do I follow it through? But I had, you know, my family, my girlfriend, they were all supporting me, basically saying, you need to, you know, you can't let this guy get away with it. You know, it's so frustrating, you know, because when we did the actual training, they said there's a whole PowerPoint on kind of how much support there is, how many people, you know, are there to help you. I had so much support as soon as it happened. They were brilliant, but, you know, after a year, I can't even remember the last time the FA contacted me to check if everything is right. I would thought the FA would be onto the police. I thought they would be knocking on the police's door and going, what's happening? You know, we can't let someone do this to one of our referees. No, nothing's happening. It's just very frustrating. And, you know, coming up to a year now since it happened, we've got no one. Haven't refereed another game. I thought, you know, it could, obviously, I never had anything before that. I had, you know, a couple of people, you know, as I play now, you get angry with referees, that you frustrate them, but never had anything like that before. I thought, oh, that could just be the one-off case. But I've completely given up.
And again, important to stress, since that incident, as he says there, he hasn't refereed a game since Scott, which also I find very upsetting.
Again, sickening is the word, and how the guy hasn't been charged with assault, let alone been banned in football. I mean, I watched that interview in full today, and the way that Harvey came across as just a lovely young human being who wanted to be involved in football and wants to help grassroots football. And the fact that he was knocked out and kicked unconscious, I don't get it. I don't get how, you know, again, he was saying that the police are still waiting on a statement for the guy's manager to confirm certain things. Why are we waiting 10 months down the line for that to happen from the police? He also said that it's been 3 or 4 months since he's heard from Surrey FA. Why has that happened? You know, so there's so many things that I think, you know, there should be a right of reply, and we're interested to hear what they've got to say. But from Harvey's point of view, the fact he doesn't want to go back because he doesn't feel supported, I think is absolutely heartbreaking.
We're going to keep this conversation going. If you've got a view on anything, you can drop us a text on 81089. We'll take calls a little bit later on. We've got some special guests, as I say, coming up very shortly. We'll be joined by Martin Cassidy, who's the head of Ref Support UK. Interesting to get his views on it. You're listening to Kick Off on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. You're listening to a Grassroots refereeing special on Kickoff. I'm Hugh Woozencroft, Chelsea FA Cup winner. Scott Minto alongside me, as is talkSPORT Sam Ellard. We'll get an update on the Women's Champions League in a moment. Bit of breaking news, though, this evening concerning Rangers. Danny Roll, the former Sheffield Wednesday boss, has withdrawn from the race to be Rangers' new manager. He had held positive talks with the club's hierarchy, but has decided the timing isn't right to pursue his interest in the job. Kevin Muscat is the front-runner to replace the sacked Russell Martin. He started discussing his contract terms, but his preference is to finish the final 4 games of the season with Chinese title favourite Shanghai Port before taking control at Ibrox. We'll see how things pan out for Rangers in the coming days and weeks. In the meantime, let's get the latest in the Women's Champions League. Chelsea in action from talkSPORT, Ian Abrahams.
And it's Chelsea 0, Paris FC 0. Not quite sure how it's 0-0 as Chelsea wasted another chance in front of goal. Aggie Beaver-Jones from close range straight at the goalkeeper. She also had a good opportunity when she was in the right-hand side of the penalty area, but her first touch was appalling. The other efforts Chelsea have had on goal, Newskin just wide, and also Erin Cuthbert. They're knocking at the door, just can't break it down at the moment. 20 gone, it's Chelsea 0, Paris FC 0.
Keep your messages coming in on Grassroots refereeing, by the way. We're very interested to know if you are someone who has shouted abuse to an official, who has been on the wrong side of things, then drop us a text. You can do it anonymously. We want to know what kind of took you in that direction and whether you've reflected on it. I think it would be an interesting contribution. We'll get to those a little bit later on. Recently, Anthony Taylor, big, of course, referee in the Premier League, World Cups as well, conducted an interview talking about the aftermath of the Europa League final a few years back, where he came in from a lot of abuse from a certain Jose Mourinho. His family faced abuse inside the stadium. He said that they hadn't come back to see him in a game since. The former ref and current head of ref support, Martin Cassidy, reacted to that interview earlier in the week, and he joins us on the show now. Good evening, Martin.
Evening, how are you doing?
Very well indeed. Firstly, let's start with those words from Anthony Taylor. What was your reaction to it? Were you surprised in any way?
No, that video that went viral got sent to me. I put it on social media. It got 16 million views. And it started the discussion about it. And I said at the time, I was on with Jim White and Simon Jordan, and I said, Jose Mourinho needs to take a massive chunk of blame for what happened to him and his family. And for too long, people like Jose Mourinho and other managers have said stuff that become activators for referee abuse. And people like the LMA, the PFA, these are members of their organisations, they never step up. They never step up and say, this is wrong. We don't expect that from our managers. And when they're getting fines, really, what is it to a multimillionaire, a 20 grand fine? And we've said loads of times we should look at taking the coaching badges away from them so they can't coach at that level. It should be a condition of getting a pro licence badge, in my opinion.
It's an interesting one. I played rugby when I was younger, and we've spoken about refereeing since I've been at talkSPORT on shows a number of times, and it always comes back, football fans saying we're more passionate than other sports. Now, I don't think so. I think rugby fans are pretty passionate, cricket fans are pretty passionate, snooker fans don't even say a sound, The darts fans, we hear them, they're passionate too, but they're not abusive, right? What is it? I've always felt that when we watch football on TV, we have the chance to send the message across the world on how to treat officials. And actually, over the previous decades, what we haven't done is, in that arena, drawn the line so that when we go back to grassroots football, people can actually say, well, that's not acceptable. The fact that they see big name players being able, and listen, I say it's a Man United fan under the Fergie days, right? 8 players round the officials screaming at them, trying to get decisions their way. That's kind of gone away a little bit, but I don't think football over the previous decades has cut it short when it comes to treating the officials in the wrong way. How are we ever going to turn it round?
Listen, it's hard to disagree with you there. It really is hard to disagree, but I don't think it's changed dramatically. I think what has changed, the landscape has definitely changed, is that the FA have stepped up. I was criticising the FA for about 5 years. I was asking for a body cam pilot. I was asking for points deduction. I was asking for giving referees space. And over the last couple of years, when there was a change of the hierarchy in the FA, particularly with Nathan McGee coming in from Australia, absolute breath of fresh air. And when the FA, we lobbied the FA and FIFA for a body cam pilot, and the FA have got it. And that was a world's first. They're the only federation in the world that's done this. And this is a massively progressive, positive move to support referees. And I think for the first time in a long, long time, you can't lay any blame at the FA for what they're trying to protect referees. But too many people and stakeholders in the game, metaphorically and physically, stand on the sidelines and do nothing. And I think it's time that other organisations and stakeholders in the game stand up. And one of the things I wanted to say is that Harvey, if Harvey wants to reach out to me, you've got your producer's got my number. Send it to him. We've got a hotline which is 0300 311 1966, where he can call me, reach out. I can give him some support. And I think when you talk about Surrey FA, I've seen some brilliant support from Surrey FA. So we're not sure what's going on here. But we can support. We can get support for Harvey free of charge. Just reach out to us and we'll help him, no problem.
Martin, you talked about Anthony Taylor there as well, and I remember actually working on the game for talkSPORT. I remember it being a terrible game. A lot of finals are, and actually I thought the best performance on the pitch was actually from Anthony Taylor, to be totally honest with you, and I said that after the game. I've never believed that footballers or managers should be role models, but how much are the grassroots affected by what they see at Premier League, elite level, professional wise?
Yes, unbelievably. If you think about how do 9-year-old kids copy a Ronaldo goal celebration? They see it on TV. Right back to Johan Cruyff turns in the 70s and 80s. Maradona, they watched it on TV and they mimic it. So it'd be really, really naive of anyone to say that they're only going to copy the good bits. You see kids going around now kissing a wedding ring at the age of 10. Do you know what I mean? So they've seen it on TV. So it's absolutely preposterous to think that these people who are there on the touchlines, absolutely behaving despicably, really, that managers, parents, as well as players will mimic that. Absolutely, totally agree with that.
Darren Bent said to me earlier on Drive that even when he watches his son play football, when he's having a conversation with a teammate, he'll cover his mouth. You see players on TV covering their mouths. And so he says even that filters down to grassroots footballs. They literally are copying everything. Martin, I completely echo the boys' thoughts on Premier League footballers need to behave better, and that will filter down. But the FA are always bringing in new measures to try and help improve behaviour. You mentioned their body cams, there's the captain's only protocol, cooling off periods. I think even some league points deductions in some leagues. Interested in what you make of some of these measures and if you think it's having any impact at all?
Absolutely, and I was part of the discussions for all of that, and we appreciate the FA reaching out to us on many of those things. I was on the show with Laura Woods, and I said about a personal space after the Konstantin Hakidakis and Andy Robertson event where, we grabbed his elbow and people said that, Konstantin elbowed him when he didn't. And I said, look, we need some personal space. If you imagine the old Sabutio player with a circle around him, we need that personal space. And then that's what's being brought in with this captain's protocol. Really positive move. Everyone just needs their personal space. If you think about Sean Massey, when Aguero touched the shoulder that time, then it escalated to Mitrovic in the face. All these things have just been left without saying, look, we need our own personal space here. We need our own boundaries. And I can't think of any reason for anyone to get within a metre of a referee unless they're shaking hands. I just can't think of any reason.
Martin Cassidy is going to stay with us. We'll come back to him about at 9 o'clock to react to some of your messages, some of your calls. We've got more interviews coming and the results of our talkSPORT dugout survey as well. So, Martin, thank you very much indeed. We'll speak to you a little bit later on in the show. Remember, you can give us a call. You can send us a message as well, 03717 223344. You can text us 81089. We'll be speaking to Paul Curtin, founder of Team Grassroots, straight after this on Kickoff. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT. We'll go back to grassroots refereeing in a second because there's been a goal in the Women's Champions League for Ian Abrams to tell us about.
Chelsea 1, Paris FC 0. It's a penalty scored by Sandy Baltimore. No problem about that. Goalkeeper dived one way. Baltimore sent the ball the other. The penalty award is generous, and that's doing heavy work to the word generous. I mean, I don't think it's a penalty in a million years, but you're talking about referees, so will not be disrespectful, considering the referee also went and looked at VAR. Foul on Nuskin inside the box. Barely touched. The Chelsea player went over, and as I said, the referee was sent by VAR to the screen and gave the penalty. So Chelsea lead 1-0 thanks to a very, very generous penalty award, and the penalty scored by Sandy Baltimore. Chelsea 1, Paris FC 0.
We got some texts coming in on 81089. Keep them coming in. By the way, I'm Hugh Woozencroft alongside Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto, Sam Ellard here as well. Grassroots refereeing is on the agenda this evening for the next kind of 45 or so minutes at least. A message in from Chris here. He says, just a small opinion on grassroots refereeing. Both my boys do it. My oldest has done so for just over 2 years. My youngest has just started up. They both enjoy it. My boys have both done several fixtures for a local academy. Neither have been paid a penny yet. We're talking some 6 weeks later. This club is one of the big ones. My eldest had an incident where two youngsters playing in under-11s were shoving each other, and the next thing I knew, one of the parents had run onto the pitch to confront my son, running at him and screaming with anger. So it doesn't, I mean, it is essentially grassroots football, but it's on the professional track.
Yeah, sure. And it's interesting you mentioned there the people on the sidelines as well. I'll give you the stat when we do the talkSPORT dugout results. But one of the questions is basically what's the biggest worry for referees? And the actual most popular answer was the fans, the parents watching. So we can talk a lot about the people on the pitch that don't behave themselves, but also, Scott, how much of a worry are the parents, the friends, the family that are coming along and are not behaving themselves as well?
Well, that's what I was going to ask Martin, actually, still might be able to, but and I've made notes here of parents, managers, spectators, basically adults. I've put in capitals on the sidelines. Well, what goes through their mind when it's grassroots, when it's, you know, kids football or even men's football as well? You know, again, it may be easy for me to just put it into a little compartment saying it's not professional football, it's grassroots, but that's exactly what it is. Why are you getting so irate that you're willing to have a fight with someone, have a go at the referee, whether it's female or male or a young kid, and now they wear armbands to show that they're under 18 on now, and that's an FA initiative, and yet still these people are doing it on the sidelines. I've been told by Orpington Rovers they know of a manager on a Sunday who came on the pitch and had a go at a 15-year-old female 3 times. And she was so calm. And the final time she said, "You're blocking me from refereeing this game," really calmly. He went back. He apologised afterwards. But you're thinking to yourself, what on
What
earth
goes
is
through
going
your mind to get into that position where you're on the pitch confronting a 15-year-old girl refereeing a game of football?
Unbelievable.
And before anyone thinks Orpington Rovers is just an odd club for Scott
Why did you name drop them, Scott?
for Scott to support,
Plug.
It's where you started as a youngster, right?
It's where I played in the early 80s. And they asked me a few years ago, could I be the president? So technically speaking, you should call me Mr. President.
I will do. I will do. Okay, from Mr. President to Paul Curtin, founder of Team Grassroots. He's also a writer for the Daily Mirror, who joins us. Good evening.
Evening, gents, and thanks very much for having us on the show.
No, thank you for joining us. Tell us more about Team Grassroots, your website, your feed on X, and how it all works.
So, a long time ago, one of the things that I recognised is that there wasn't an independent grassroots football organisation to discuss the very topics that you're discussing tonight. So, instead of waiting for somebody else to come along and set that up, I decided to set it up myself. We now, 15 years on, have an audience of around about 15 million a week, which is around about the grassroots audience in the United Kingdom. And the very topic that you've been discussing tonight and all of the talking points that I've heard during the course of that are exactly the type of topics that come up daily in our work.
What have you seen over the years, the good, the bad, the ugly of it all?
I think the first thing I'm going to say is it's really important to have context. So the title of the show is there a crisis in grassroots football refereeing? I think before I even answer a yes or no, I think it's important to say that it's certainly not a utopia right now. But is it a crisis? Probably not. I think there's pressure on referees like there's never been pressure before from spectators, from fans. And I think social media really amplifies that. And I think certainly I know obviously Martin Cassidy's been on there just before me. When you have organisations like Ref Support UK, when you have organisations like ourselves, Team Grassroots, we always amplify the stories. So when stories come through, we might showcase 100 positive stories or 1,000 positive stories. But then the one story of a 15-year-old girl where a manager or a parent comes onto the pitch, that's the one that hits the headline. That's the one that's really amplified by media. So it's easy to draw a conclusion that there's a major crisis within the sport because these are the stories that you're actually picking off. The reality is, if there's hundreds of thousands of matches every single weekend, and the majority of those go off without any major issues. There's around about 40,000 referees in the country, which is about 2,000 more than there was in 2024. And I think the attrition rate of keeping referees right now is about 80%. So that's the highest it's been. So I just think it's really important to add that context to the conversation. But interestingly, it was so funny because when I was waiting to come on, they reported on a goal at Chelsea, and the first thing they said was a really generous penalty. He then went on to elaborate and said, I know you're talking about referees, so I won't say too much more. It's easy to talk in that tone, but unfortunately, sometimes the lines between grassroots football and the professional game can be quite blurred. So the referee out in that game that Chelsea's playing on would have had assistants, cameras, would have had all of those modern technologies. And let's be honest, a grassroots referee has 2 eyes and 2 ears. And that's all they have. They don't have the benefit of replays. They don't have the benefit of anything other than what they see in front of them. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that, like even on this show, subtle words like a generous penalty would suggest that it was a wrong decision.
Listen, let me tell you, I presented the Rugby World Cup on ITV, Rugby Union World Cup on ITV, and there was a lot of talk at the time around changes in the rules there. There was a lot of TMO, video officiating during that competition, all to do with high tackles and stuff like that, right? And there were a lot of red cards being given out. There was a lot of talk in the sport over whether it was being over-officiated. But we made the decision, and I don't even think it was really that explicit, but we would never name the officials. We would pore over the decision they made. We would talk about the referee. We would talk about the TMO, but we wouldn't be naming them because it wasn't about who they were as individuals. It was about the decisions that they were making and whether we as fans and pundits agreed with them. That was it. I think football has made so much of officials. Oh, it's this official again. Oh, it's this person again. Naming them to the point that they almost become a celebrity type of within the game. It's unnecessary.
Hugh, can I just ask you a question about the rugby comparison? Because rugby is a really good example. We know referees get so much respect there, right? Do you think there is any way that we will watch Premier League football and the players will treat the referees in the same way? And if I put this suggestion to you, referees we know are allowed to book players for talking and giving it back, right?
Yeah.
But what we also know is the referees might book a player or a manager occasionally, but they do not do it consistently. And something I've never got my head around is the referees have the power to book a player for giving it some chat, right? Can you imagine if we go into a new season or a new weekend, let's say this weekend, and every single referee sits around with each other and says every single time someone steps out of line, every time we will book them. Now, I completely appreciate for the first weekend or two, it's going to be messy. There'll be all sorts of records broken for most amount of cards, etc., etc. But sooner rather than later, football players will realise we cannot say anything. And then surely, Hugh, that has to give the referees the best chance moving forward of footballers stop chatting back, and hopefully in time to come, that then filters down to grassroots football.
Yeah. It would change, and they should do it, and they should have done it years ago.
I don't get why not. They have the power to do it.
I get it. There's going to be strong language out there, and it's a very passionate game, particularly for the players. But many times during games, we know that they step over the line in terms of their insults towards referees, and they might just say it was the heat of the moment. Believe me, the heat of the moment goes very quickly when you know the red card's coming out.
And that's my point, Hugh. Be consistent with it, and I believe that's the only way to stop abuse of referees in the Premier League.
I think it's the only way. I don't know what you think, Paul. Could it work?
I mean, I would be a huge advocate of that, seeing that in the Premier League, where it's policed literally to the letter of the law. Unfortunately, because of the riches that's at stake, that's not always going to play out in the Premier League. It certainly could play out in grassroots football. But what I would come back to is everything's perspective. So when you've seen offside, I've seen onside. When you've seen a great tackle, I've seen a foul. And sometimes that can just be an opinion bias, or it can be where you're standing on the sideline. And unfortunately, when we're in grassroots football,
we will hear the same reaction to it. We're talking about how you react to things, right? That won't be different. We can all hear.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The problem is that plays out live, potentially in front of a 14 or a 15-year-old child. And the sidelines, certainly in grassroots football, predominantly are adults. And the 80% of referees in grassroots football are children. And if you look at, say, what the FA have done, because I would probably agree with Martin, I would support what the FA have done over the last 5 to 10 years to try to really get a hold on that, because there's only a few things really that you can do. You can educate, you can intervene, or you can punish. And I think all three of those have been ticked with particularly the new projects. I love the yellow armband for every single referee in grassroots football that is now being offered the opportunity, if they want to be identified as a child, because I do think that should be stressed significantly to adults, whether it's your first game or your 500th game, it doesn't really matter. You don't have the right to abuse a child on a pitch.
You don't have the right to abuse an adult either.
Correct. Likewise, you wouldn't expect anybody to abuse your child on the pitch. It's the same thing. That referee is going to be somebody's child, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, etc., who, to be fair, by and large are refereeing because they want to enjoy it. I know there's obviously a very small monetary gain, and certainly in grassroots refereeing, and it's very transient. But I think the men and women and the boys and girls who do referee, they do it because they enjoy it. They want to either continue to participate in the game, or they want to progress their own development. And I think they've also got the right to go out there, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, and not being abused. I think that's a fair ask.
Very quickly, you've got an 87-year-old ref, is that right?
There was an 87-year-old. I mean, we are trying to find the oldest referee in the country. But Percy, the 87-year-old ref, he's now a poster boy for refereeing.
Hasn't been called a boy for a while, 87 years old, but there you go. Listen, Paul, really appreciate you joining us. That's Paul Curtin, founder of Team Grassroots. Where can we find you?
www.teamgrassroots.co.uk. Thanks, gents.
No, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to get to some of your messages, some of your calls as well. Firstly, let's get to Moose, who's been waiting because he's got another goal. Is it Chelsea's?
Yeah, Chelsea 2, Paris FC 0. Nothing generous about this at all, apart from the defending from the Parisian side. Ball in from the left-hand side by Alicia Thompson, and a header from Wrighting Cannery, 10 yards out, which went into the back of the net. Chelsea 2, Paris FC 0 into the first half injury time.
We'll be back straight after this here on Kickoff.
Some incredible messages coming in, so many of them. Thank you very much. I'm going to try and read out as many as I can after 9 o'clock. Keep them coming in on 81089. One of them here, this is from Stuart, says, "Evening, gents, great show and subject. I'm a grassroots referee of 28 years now. I've seen the game change for the better until VAR was introduced. We're now expected to get every decision correct. We are abused much more than when it wasn't in place. The things people see on TV drastically differ from what we're told in the grassroots. Like swearing, we're told not to accept any at all. If someone swears at you, it's a red card, offensive or abusive language. But in the Premier League, we see every week players swearing at the ref and they're told to ignore it. How does that help us at grassroots? Refs should be setting the examples, not differing the laws. It's such a mess at the moment. We promote great young refs at 16 to 18 years old. They enter adult football, never having really seen abuse in youth football, and then they leave after 6 months. It's not worth the pay." Really appreciate that message. 81089. You can give us a call as well. We'll take those calls in the 9 hour. 03717 223344. Let's quickly go back to Ian Abraham's halftime whistle has gone.
Chelsea 2, Paris FC 0. Chelsea needed a very generous penalty award to hit the front. Newskin went down inside the penalty area. Very little appeal for a penalty, if the truth be told. VAR told the referee to have a look on the screen. She did, gave the penalty, and Sandy Baltimore did the business from the spot. Second goal just before half-time. Ball in from the left-hand side by Thompson, headed home 10, 12 yards out by Writing Cannerid. Sonia Bonpastor's side should go on and win comfortably from here at the break. Chelsea 2, Paris FC 0.
Hugh Woozencroft with you alongside Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto. talkSPORT reporter Sam Ellard is here as well. Now, some of our listeners are members of the talkSPORT dugout. Last week, you put some of our questions online via talksport.com to them regarding grassroots refereeing. Hundreds of you got involved. Thank you very much indeed. Sam, what are the headlines?
84% of our wonderful dugout members think referees aren't shown the right level of respect and support from players, coaches and spectators at grassroots level. It's a high number, but I actually thought that number might even be higher. This is interesting. We asked who is to blame for the increase in verbal and physical abuse towards referees in grassroots football. It was a tight call, but spectators shouting from the touchline got the most votes with 58%, Scott, which I thought was very interesting, because we do know that when parents go and watch their young lad or daughter go and play football, they can also be as big of a problem as the people playing on the pitch.
Yeah, I actually thought that'd be higher, to be totally honest with you. And again, as I said earlier, I just don't get it how you're watching, you know, your boy or your girl, and then you get so involved in something. You know, it's not professional football. And you know, we sort of touched on it in the break even. I think there's an angry society out there that almost it's the way that it's channeled out, and it's a way that they feel they can get out their frustration when it's a completely wrong way to do it. And you mentioned it, Sam, and I know a lot of people sort of poo-poo the idea of it, but I genuinely think if players were told at the start of the season that you're going to get, if you come close, or, you know, we obviously got Captain's Corner now as well, which I think is a great idea. But if you're going to swear at the referee and tell him or her, you know, you're this, you're that, or whatever, it's a direct red card. Then I genuinely think, and they stuck with it. That's the problem. There's so many of these laws that come out at the start of the season that last about a month, 6 weeks, 2 months maximum, and then it kind of just goes into the background and that. And we talked about, and we've heard from the guys who've already come on saying how important, how much of the role models it's seen from the professional level to grassroots and how much they copy them. I genuinely think, you know, if I was told that, I wouldn't do it. And I'm pretty sure the footballers are intelligent enough that if they're going to get sent off on a regular basis, and you're right, Sam, there might be a couple of weekends where there's 4 or 5 red cards, and it seems ridiculous that they wouldn't turn around and realise, actually, I need to do something about this. When I first started rugby at school, the first thing we were told is you never question a referee's decision. And that's something which I was never told that from a football.
No, nor was I. I played football for years when I started playing rugby, and I was only, 12 or 13 when I first said something. I didn't even say it directly to the ref. I just said, that's, you know, I didn't really like the decision very much. The parents on the side, disbelief, you can't say that. My coach, you can't say that. My teammates, you just can't say that. And it stuck. I remember that moment to this day. It stuck with me for however many decades it's been. You know, you just don't do that. And for some reason, we just don't have that kind of feeling in football.
I think all these initiatives are nice, but I completely echo your thoughts. I think the only way to completely stamp it out is if you swear, you abuse, it is a yellow card or a red card, and implement it every single time it happens. Nearly a fifth of our dugout audience say grassroots refereeing is worse than it was 10 years ago. 3/4 of our audience don't think the FA is doing enough to stamp out abuse in all levels of football. Now, we put some of the stats towards the head of referee development at the FA. Yesterday, I had a really interesting and in-depth conversation with Nathan McGill, who gave us the lowdown on where the FA are at with grassroots refereeing.
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, like to address that issue, I'd say that ultimately it's always concerning when we hear that people aren't having a great experience, because ultimately we care and we understand that refereeing is actually part of their enjoyment. It's their contribution to the game. And without these people at the very base of the pyramid, football doesn't take place. So we know that the referees that go out and give up their time to make this happen shouldn't be subjected to that type of behaviour. So it is disappointing to hear that. It always is disappointing to hear that. And I think one of the things that we're doing quite, consciously is trying to look at the environment, make sure that it's safer through things like body cams, introducing and piloting things like the sin bins. We're also looking at the latest IFAB intervention, which is the cooling off periods for the amateur game as well. All of these things, I'd say, Sam, is something we take exceptionally seriously. And while the alerts, are sporadic, we know that every time we hear something, it's one too many. But we do know that we've got a challenge to work with every stakeholder in the game, because we know it's not just refereeing that's having the issue at times. It can be, the way society has changed quite a lot in 20 or 30 years, and football is trying to address a societal behaviour change as well. And whether that's people taking it out on coaches, on volunteers, on club officials or referees, anyone that contributes to the game of football should be able to go there treated with respect and valued. So I think that, anyone that sort of treats any of our stakeholders and any of our participants in that way needs to probably have a look at themselves, I would suggest.
Lots of people responding, lots of different stats that have come from this survey in front of me. But I just wanted to ask you one. We asked who is to blame for the increase in verbal and physical abuse towards referees in grassroots football. It was a tight call, but spectators shouting from the touchline got the most votes with 58%. So we can talk a lot about the players on the pitch getting in referees' faces and stuff like that, but also how much of a concern is parents, friends, fans on the touchline getting involved?
Yeah, look, I think when we talk about environments, everyone's got a role to play, right, to make the environment both obviously entertaining for the players, whether they be young kids who want to play the game and just love the game and want to compete and do the best for their parents, right? Because let's be honest, when you're a young kid, you're playing because your parents have got you involved and they're committed to getting you there. I think for me, the best piece of advice, Sam, is that I never understood how hard refereeing was until I became a referee. I don't know my parents understood how hard it was to be a referee until I became a referee either. So, it was probably like this big education piece for my parents when I got involved. And obviously, I'm not saying my parents were the worst behaved in the world, but it was a really big eye-opener for how they sort of helped at games when I was playing, speaking to other parents, just maybe even sharing some of those examples, right, of how you can help make the behaviour better. But I think just a little bit of empathy here to understanding the referee has got a split second at the grassroots level to see something once. They're out there to make the game better. They're out there because ultimately, right, they love it. And it's a reason that I've been involved in refereeing for 20 odd years, is because I got bitten by the bug when I first started. And I've gone from a very small country town in New South Wales in Australia to walking up the steps of Wembley every day. So I don't ever lose that gravitas of just how much refereeing is given to my life. And there's people that'll have better experiences than I have. They'll have different experiences than I have. But ultimately, everyone that wakes up, I think parents and spectators need to understand they get up in the morning, these guys and girls, to go and referee because they love football and they want football to be better and they love what they do. So a little bit of empathy towards that won't go astray.
To kind of sum it up, how do you feel about the current state of the grassroots game?
I think we're in a really strong place, Sam. I'm actually really confident that the interventions from the new strategy, the work that I see my team do every day and the work that I see the CFAs do every day is actually in a really strong position. And I think that if we're looking for perfection, it's not perfect. I think that we acknowledge it's not perfect and we know there's more to do. but we're in a really strong position. I think there's never been a better time to be a referee. And that might sound cliche, but I see the work that's been done to integrate the pathways. I see the work of how English referees perform internationally at World Cups, both men's and women's. And I think to myself, there's a really attractive pathway. But if the pathway's not for you, there's also a really good opportunity to contribute to what is actually the most important hour, 2 hours, day of the week for most people in this country, which is football.
That is the FA's head of referee development, Nathan McGill. Thank you to him, and thank you for the FA for allowing him to speak to us on this topic. Really interesting career from him, and a strong message there at the end. You know, these officials are giving up their time because they love the game. We're going to have more from you, and we'll be speaking once again to Mr. Cassidy. He's with us in a few moments' time. Strong views from him. Straight after this, you're listening to Kick Off on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org.
Knows there are 20 managers in the Premier League, yeah? Well, actually, no. Around 3/4 of them are not managers. The terms manager and head coach are often used interchangeably to describe Premier League bosses, but they're actually two different jobs. So let's explain how and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025 there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches and the job position of football manager.
You're listening to a grassroots refereeing special, here on talkSPORT. I'm Hugh Woozencroft alongside Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto. We want some solutions in this final half an hour or so. How do we improve the number of officials coming into the game? We're told it's strong, but it could be stronger. But also, of course, how do we deal with some of the abuse that we're seeing, not just directed to adult officials, but to children as well who are officiating and playing at the grassroots level? Surely that is something we all want to change immediately. Give us a call, 03717 223344. You can text us as well on 81089. This is Kickoff. And we're going to be rejoined by the head of Referee Support UK, Martin Cassidy, to discuss the findings of our talkSPORT dugout survey, but also, of course, to react to what we heard just before the break. Nathan McGill, the FA's head of referee development, joined us. He had some positive messages, as you might expect. I know lots of you messaging in about the FA. So, Martin, I think we should probably start there, shouldn't we? In terms of their impact on the game and in terms of how they react to some of the negative things, how would you rate the job the FA are currently doing?
Listen, over the last couple of years, I'm going to give them 8 out of 10. I think they've brought some of the most progressive, positive moves in recently that I've ever seen. Nathan McGill is really leading his team well, had some really, really good results, really good ideas. And as he said, there's a perfect no. But I think it's time to stop blaming the FA. I think they really are stepping up. But there's too many other people in the game who aren't. And you said earlier about why don't we just get the cards out and it'll sort itself out. That won't work because the system, the way it is, referees get marked by club marks and clubs will mark you down because you sent off their favourite forward or their captain. So there's a lot more to it than just getting out and doing it, even though I think it would work.
What about the professional level, though? If the rules change, it's hard to mark a referee down for enforcing the laws of the game, right?
Yeah, and I agree. I absolutely agree. And there's a disconnect between the top flight game and the grassroots game, massive disconnect. Paul Kane, he's got a great platform and he's really good. He mentioned it, it's so different. And I think at the top flight, it's an event, a lot of money involved, like Paul said. And I think they get away with murder, if I'm honest. And I think one of the biggest things that I could say is that if you asked the players if the referees would allow their mics to be open all through the game, which I'd love to happen, they'd say no because of their behaviour to the referees. And I think, it's all right saying, why don't we just get the cards out? Why don't we just stop the behaviour? Just stop the behaviour.
But how do we do that?
Yeah, Martin, I don't think that's going to happen if you just say, just please stop. You have to get the cards out. And we talk about a disconnection from the elite level to grassroots. Well, but you've also talked about how they copy what goes on at elite. And I genuinely think if there were at the elite level, and Howard Webb, I think, want to single him out, obviously being in his position, to being really strong with the referees and saying we're going to be doing this, because this is not just about at elite level. This is about grassroots. I genuinely think, if it is to believe, and I do believe it, that is copied at grassroots of what goes on, then it will filter down eventually.
No, absolutely. No, I absolutely 100% agree. It is mimicked, but the disconnect is in the amount of money involved, the event. You know, and like I said earlier, and they always sit there on the sidelines, the PFA and the LMA do nothing. So they need to control their members. I don't even know if there's a code of conduct for their managers. I don't even know if there's a code. I don't know if when you were a member of the PFA, whether you got told not to get in referees' faces or not. So I think there's a lot more people who just don't do enough. And I think, you know, you'll see it all the time. Listen, you just had the Moose on earlier saying what he said, generous, and he said no one appealed for it. You know, how do you react to that? So you just give a penalty because you appeal for it. So there's these responsibility where pundits need to take accountability of what they say. Referees need accountability, and I think players and managers need accountability.
Okay, Martin, let's have that conversation. Firstly, there's a goal. I'm sure Ian Abrahams is going to respond to what you've said, but there has been a goal in the Women's Champions League. Let's start there, Moose.
Chelsea 3, Paris FC 0. The third goal, Kira Walsh, right-hand side, drove the ball across the penalty area. Aggie Beaver-Jones stuck out a foot, couldn't reach it. Alicia Thompson could and stabbed it in. So Chelsea lead 3-0. If I could just respond at half-time like a good journalist, I went and asked my colleagues in the press room, Martin, about whether or not it was a penalty and should have been given a penalty. The words soft and generous were bandied about. I even asked an injured Chelsea women's player whether it was a penalty. She said no, and even asked someone from the Chelsea press team, and they said probably it wasn't a penalty. So I'm being kind to the referee by saying it was generous and a soft award. You doubtless will get the opportunity to see the highlights of it later. I look forward to a response from you on social media if you think I was wrong.
There you have it, Martin.
Listen, really appreciate it. That's the sort of discussions we want, referees would want, and I personally want. But, you know, nearly every penalty I hear is a soft penalty. I actually put a quiz out saying how many different types of penalties is the, and there's loads. There's not just the Stonewaller, and I think you know, it's interesting that why did the VAR think it was a penalty then? Yeah, and she have got multiple cameras and they're sat down and there's no emotional investment in it. So I think you know, let's start trusting the VAR a bit more.
Well, I mean, what I would say, Martin, and defence of the Moose as well, I don't think we should ever be scared to say that we think it was a wrong decision. I think there are ways and means of saying that. But if I see a game that I don't think is a penalty, even if VAR think it doesn't mean to say that VAR is right. Doesn't mean to say that I'm right. Again, it's very subjective. But I still think you can disagree with a decision without it getting abusive or saying off the back of that something has happened. So I do think there's a line to be had. But I also do think as well that, you know, again, I go back to the fact if elite football is being copied by grassroots, then we have to be stronger at the top. It's as simple as that. And it will eventually filter down. And I mean, one question I have for you is, how much is it not just for the referees themselves, but actually, you know, there might be some parents who have to do the line as well, who they get abuse and sometimes even worse than referees.
Yeah, I agree. Most referees will tell you that the problems for a long time has been spectators and parents. And unfortunately, because they don't sign up to be a participant, the FA haven't got any control over them. So it's really, really difficult for, you know, and particularly a younger referee to go over there and say, oh, you know, can you be quiet? And we tell them to, if they feel threatened, to abandon the game. That's what we say to them. If they feel threatened, whether they're adult or child, to abandon the game. And I think we touched on the yellow armbands. You know, how bad is it? How bad is it, the game, that we've got to identify children to try and stop them being abused? How bad is it? And people are applauding what the FA done, and I applaud it, what they've done. They brought in the yellow armbands. But really, we've got to identify children to stop them getting abused. That's how bad the game is. To me, that's a major sign that there's a bit of a crisis in the game.
We're going to get to calls and texts very, very shortly here on talkSPORT. 03717 22 3344. If you'd like to join the conversation, you're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. You can also send us a WhatsApp to 03717 22 3344. Just like Chris has. He's the father of a young ref. Here's what he had to say.
I'm Chris. I'm a parent of a 17-year-old referee. So he's just started his second season. The training and support he's had's been great. But once he's out on that pitch, it's not easy, you know. It's just him. He's in the middle on his own. He's relying on the linesman and they're often untrained or unfit, so he's managing the whole game himself. The hardest part is not the players, because they just want to play football with their mates. The coaches, well, they can get booked as well, but it doesn't stop them moaning. The hardest part, I think, is the parents, to be honest, because they're living their own football dreams through their boys, and they're just desperate to win. And if any decision goes against them, the ref's the target. So I remember one match, our son, he gave away a penalty. I was in the middle. The parents on my left were like, Stonewall penalty, ref, absolutely, got to be. On the right, they were screaming and shouting and swearing at him. And, you know, he's 17 at the end of the day. To be honest, he's only really carrying on because he gets paid for it. He gets £35 a match, but he's getting a load of abuse. Why would he want to continue to take all that abuse just for the love of the game?
You can have your say next here on talkSPORT. This is Kickoff. Right, let's get to your calls. 03717 223344. Hugh Woozencroft with you, as is Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto, and also Martin Cassidy, head of Ref Support UK, who's joined us on talkSPORT this evening. Steve, Port Vale fan, I might as well say who you support, is with us. Good evening.
Good evening, gents. How are you? Okay?
Hi, Steve. Very well indeed. What's your experience been of grassroots football? Are you talking from a coach, player, I don't know, parent perspective?
A referee.
Okay.
I played the game for 45 years, and then I don't know why, but I decided to go reffing at the age of 45. So I've done it for about 5 or 6 years now. My story is slightly different. I got promoted quite quickly to level 4, which is semi-professional level, and I was doing a game last August in the North West Counties League. It was a game in Bruges. I don't want to say the name of the clubs for obvious reasons. Yeah. And it was around about the 92nd minute. But if I paint the picture of the game first, it was quite let's say, an aggressive game. There was probably about 1,200 spectators there watching, 1,000 people watching. So it was, quite a big fixture. And like I said, in the 92nd minute, I've given a penalty for the away side. And the home defender, who had already booked, he wasn't very happy, obviously, as players aren't. But again, we've spoken this evening about it being, the decisions. Everybody's got their own opinions on the decision. So anyway, I'm trying to say that to him, but he's really, really aggressive. And like I said, I'd already booked him. So enough was enough. I showed him the second yellow card. And at this point, he was probably about 10 foot away from me. And he's quick, close that space down and tell me what he's going to do to me. His hands were clenched. He's slurring. It's shaking a load of explosives at me. He's come within touching distance and put his head towards my face. And obviously, I'm not going to get assaulted. So I put 2 hands on his chest and pushed him away. That's absolutely over it. Anyway, about a week later, the club obviously sent the footage into the FA. And with being a level 4 referee, you're not the county FA doesn't look at discipline and things like that. So it went to the FA in London. They reviewed the footage and decided to charge me with violent conduct. So I appealed that decision because I thought, all I'm doing is just protecting myself. I didn't want to get headbutted, and that was my honest opinion. I thought that's what he was trying to do, headbutt me when he puts his head in my face. What else is he supposed to do? So I had the appeal. That was heard, and they found me guilty of violent conduct, and they gave me £180 fine and a 2-week ban.
Did you go back to officiating?
Well, I did one more game, and that went the same way. So I ended up quitting the semi-pro game. I still do Sunday mornings, and I absolutely love that. I really enjoyed that, so I don't want to quit that. But I mean, the thing is, I'm a policeman, so getting done for violent conduct and being a police officer wasn't the best, really. But you know what? I'd do it again tomorrow if if you get approached like that. You've got to protect yourself. My point being that the FA did not protect me, and it was actually a panel of referees that viewed the footage and they deemed that it was violent conduct, which is unbelievable. And the chairman who heard the appeal said that I should have turned and ran away. Imagine doing that. How does that look? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was my experience.
Steve, really appreciate you getting us started on that tonight and your experience. We'll get a reaction to in a few moments' time. Got to go back to the Women's Champions League. There's been another goal for Ian Abrahams.
Chelsea 4, Paris FC 0. Sam Khan as a sub, but a corner played in from the left-hand side. Kerr 3 yards out, left unmarked, headed the ball eventually between the defender and the goalkeeper. Chelsea 4, Paris FC 0.
Let's squeeze in one more call before we go to Martin Cassidy. Johnny, Queen's Park Rangers fan. Don't know why I'm saying it, but it's in front of me. Good evening, Johnny.
Evening, how are you?
Very well. Grassroots, ref, coach, parent?
Coach, was a parent, ended up in the coaching role. Very much enjoy it.
What's your experience been at the grassroots level, especially when it comes to officiating?
It's got to come down to the coaches, the managers, anyone involved at the club. I've been coaching now for the last 3 years, and to be honest, we finally got there with the parents, because ultimately that's where a lot of the kids' behaviour issues come from. And that's not to say all the kids have behaviour issues, but it's just about being disciplined as a coach, being disciplined as a manager, and saying this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. That's my opinion on that, really.
Are you strict with the parents in terms of, you don't want to punish the kids, obviously, but if the parents do have repeated bad behaviour, do you ask them not to come back?
No, not so much that. I mean, we got there with the parents. A few parents have left because they felt we was too disciplined and they felt they should be enjoying football rather than being taught it. But, that's, as my view as a coach, the kids have got to develop into footballers, which means you've got to be disciplined. Going back to what you said about the parents, I only said this weekend to a parent, let the coaches coach and you be a parent. We'll do the talking, we'll discipline them whilst they're here at the club, and then whatever you do afterwards, that's totally up to you. But whilst they're representing our football club, this is how we need them to behave.
Johnny, really appreciate your call. Let's squeeze in one more. Mark, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you? Okay?
Very well indeed. Thank you for getting in touch with talkSPORT. What's your experience been?
Well, like the previous caller, I got promoted from grassroots to semi-professional. And
Refereeing, this is?
Sorry?
You were refereeing, were you?
Refereeing, and I was, over the last 3 games, I've issued 2 red cards for foul and abusive language. And both of the players who received those cards were absolutely stunned that I didn't give the yellow card for dissent. And you explained that they've actually taken the time to swear in my face. So therefore, it's not dissent, it's foul and abusive language to a match official. So much so that even the club secretary called me later that night and said, are you sure you got the laws of the game right, that it wasn't dissent? And I find that quite surprising. And I think most players expect now that they can be abusive to referees and they'll just get the yellow card. And nobody's mentioned it tonight, but Martin may be aware, and he is correct, that the FA have done some superb work over the last 3 or 4 years. And the sin bins in the game at level 4, semi-professional and grassroots. And everybody expects, or players expect, to be able to swear at a referee or question his judgment and just get 10 minutes on the sideline. But when a player takes at least 2 or 3 seconds, if not longer, to look you in the eye and then swear at you and get surprised why you've gone with the red card, it's, quite surprising.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Let's go back to Martin Cassidy, Head of Ref Support UK. What have you thought of the last few calls there?
Listen, Mark and Johnny in the nail on the head there, and I think it's really important. I mean, and hopefully people would take some advice from Johnny about taking control of the parents and saying, look, we don't want that behaviour, and you can't come to the club. I think that's what I was trying to get out there, that a lot of people need to stand up, and when we have these brilliant coaches like Johnny seems to be, I think the game will improve, that we sort of stop the nonsense on the sideline, that then is all like a virus goes onto the pitch. And I think, thank you to both of them giving up their time to referee and phoning tonight to give some good advice there.
Let's squeeze in Ian if we can before the break. Good evening, Ian.
Hi, how are we doing?
Very well. What's your view?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I want to say fantastic show. I think it's really important that these things come out. So I'm a grassroots coach, and this season, me and my son qualified as referees. Just because obviously as a grassroots coach, I wanted to see what it was like from the other side. Not proud of it, but I do like to voice my opinions to referees sometimes. And I found it really interesting because me and my son jumped into it. So we went to all the referee meetings that they have, and my issue with FAs as well is consistency. I'm hearing some things tonight that's terrible. The FA that I'm involved in, trust me, they do investigate everything, not rightly in some cases, but they do investigate everything. But the league that we play in is crossed over, so it's got different counties, and different counties deal with things in different ways, which I find really difficult to get my head around, because it should just be the FA should just have one way of dealing with things. And for instance, the FA that I referee for now have said that if anyone walks on the pitch, then the referee has to abandon the game straight away. So if a kid gets injured, if a parent goes over the rope and walks onto the pitch, regardless of whether they're being abused or anything, you've got to cancel the game. So, for instance, one of my first games that I refereed as a referee, half time the parent walks over the pitch to give their kid a drink bottle. With the letter of the law, I should have abandoned the game, going with my FA. But like I say, my main thing is the consistency of the FA, because I see it from both sides now.
Can I take you back very quickly to when you said you like to say things to the officials? How were you voicing your opinions, and how would you describe it?
I'm very respectful because obviously, you've got parents on the other side. I've got the players, and I'm a very advocate of your players represent you. So if they see you as a coach, shouting, swearing, not that I have ever sworn, or doing anything like that, then the players will copy. So I often ask the referee if they can come over so I can have a conversation with them. Not obviously in front of players, just a conversation. But as in football, you always claim for decisions. I'd just say it's the way that you claim them. And I'd also say the one thing that I always say when I referee games is to both teams. I tell them I'm neutral. I don't care what the result is. I just want a good game of football. But the one thing I do say to them is football is about opinions. Unfortunately for you guys, my opinion is the only one that counts today. So you might disagree with it, but I'm not going to change it.
Thank you very much for your call, Ian. And I've got to say thank you as well, Martin Cassidy. Very final word on all of this.
Listen, I think always remember, I'll still advocate taking up the whistle. It's a fantastic hobby. Takes you around the world, makes you new friends. Definitely take it. And there is more support now from the FA than ever. But let's all just get together. Shows like this will really help. So congratulations on getting discussion there. And I think a lot more people need to come together and make the game better and safer together.
Final thoughts from Scott Minto?
Yeah, no, look, well done to Martin for everything he does. I hear him when he comes on the White and Jordan show, and I think people like him, need to be doing the job he's doing. We haven't got time. Maybe I'll speak to him another time about his thoughts on Steve, who initially said that he got charged for protecting himself. I mean, I find that a lack of support just incredible. But look, they are making progress. There's no doubt about it. When you think about how many games are going on, it's a small minority, but one incident is one incident too many. I think you've got the captains only is good, cooling off periods are good. I think the body cam is absolutely crucial. And we need to try and get as many of those out as possible. We heard from Harvey earlier on, didn't we? And the reason why he wasn't wearing a body cam, and he believes if he was, that the incident wouldn't have happened and he wouldn't have been rendered unconscious, is because there was a crossover of different leagues because it was a cup game. I think for me, definitely have more shows like this, talk a lot more. I think from the elite level, things need to be sorted out a lot better. But I think the body cam right here, right now, would be instant, because if it was made aware at the start of any game that the referee's wearing a body cam and everything's recorded, I think you'd see that, a lot of these instances go a lot further down.
Thank you to all of you that got involved. I'll try and have a quick look at some of the messages during the break as well, see if we can read some of those after the break. Thank you so much to all of our guests this evening as well. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT. Hugh, Woozencroft and Chelsea FA Cup winner Scott Minto are with you. Great conversation this evening on Grassroots officiating.
5 hour show if we want it to be. I mean, one other thing I just want to say is, and we were just discussing it in the break, the managers
so important,
absolutely key in this. They absolutely set the tone to their players, to the parents, to people on the sideline. If they don't have it, it won't happen. And I think they're so important. I really do.
Loads of you messaging in this evening. I'll try and read some of them out. Great show tonight. Thank you very much. I'm a primary school head teacher. I've been involved in grassroots football coaching for over 30 years. I have no doubt at all that spectator behaviour in that time has become much worse. Parents are making excuses for poor behaviour from their children on the pitch by blaming and shouting at the ref or the linesman, which is especially bad, as those officials are actually parents just volunteering to do it. I hear so many parents saying to their child that it was the ref's fault that they lost. Winning games seems to be linked to self-worth far too much and taken far too seriously. It's really disheartening. Children are learning from their parents and them themselves become the next generation of angry and abusive spectators. Thank you very much. That's from David. This one says, good evening, gents. It's horrendous to hear about referees being knocked unconscious, and especially one that hasn't had any justice for it, referring, I think, to Harvey a little bit earlier on. It's worse, a statement still hasn't been received. The team should be suspended from playing until that case is settled, or a punishment for letting it drag on for so long. Lots of these are very long messages, so I'm trying to, if you like, edit them with my eyes as I go along. This one says the coaches, also once again, the coaches have a responsibility to educate their players about what is right and what is wrong. There are teams at every age group where I live, and there's literally pot luck as to which type of coach will end up coaching your child. Quite often, if you try to point out the actual rules that they're supposed to be following in a respectful way, it's ignored. And the I'm a volunteer, I give up my free time to do this, how dare you question me card is played. That's from Rebecca. She says she's a mum who used to play, loves football, 2 kids who now won't even look at a football. And that's what we don't want. We don't want officials leaving the game because of this. We don't want players leaving the game because of this, whether they're children or whether they're adults. You know, for me, when it comes to grassroots sports, I think my message has always been, you know, if you're playing Sunday League football, you're a Sunday League player, why are you expecting a Champions League official? You know, I get it. We watch TV and we think it's the same thing. It's the same role. It isn't. You know, the training and support that professional officials are getting is very different to those who are coming to ref you on a Sunday or reffing your kids at under 7s, under 8, under 9s, under 14s, whatever it might be. So please do think about that. You know, we expect such a high level of quality from our officials who are giving up their spare time, who obviously have their own professions. You know, it's a very different job. We cannot expect perfection from them. If your children are playing sport, it should be about them improving. Shouldn't be about them winning. And I know that's people, you know, people go, that's a British mentality. It's not about taking part. It is about winning. No, it's about development of character and obviously their talents in terms of their sport. Again, if you abuse the officials at that level, they won't be able to develop. They won't be able to become professionals. There'll be no game for them to play on a Sunday morning. I just think it's, you know, it's gone way too far. And the other thing is, and we speak about this all the time, but I definitely believe it is a societal thing. I've played adult men's Sunday League football. I founded a team. I ran a Sunday League team up in Manchester. There were people who clearly should have been in a boxing ring or an octagon, or doing jiu-jitsu, right? They wanted to get their anger and frustrations from their, I don't know, Monday to Friday out. They've come to football with only one real goal, and that is to hurt people. Again, football is not the place for that. We all love football. If you're not going to be a professional if you're playing Sunday League football and you're 30 years old. Just go and enjoy it. Have a good run around. Try not to break anyone's legs, and hopefully no one will break yours. You know, it has to be that kind of level of we're all adults and we all understand it. But there are, again, parents-wise, you know, your kids' sport is not the place to take out your frustrations at life on a 16, 17, 18-year-old official. We're getting, I know people say it's a bit too woke and whatnot, but we're becoming a bit too angry, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I'll go back to what I said at the very start of it, in that, you know, I was very fortunate to have played professional football, but actually, as much as, and we're all football fans here, first and foremost, whether you played it, whether you didn't. But grassroots, actually, when you think about the amount of people it touches, boys, girls, men, women, it is so much more important. And without referees, there is no grassroots. Without referees, there is no game. Now, you'll always get them at the professional level, but you won't always get them at the grassroots level. And yeah, I totally agree. I look at the some of the parents, and I don't really go there on a regular basis. And the times that I have, actually, parents have been pretty good. So again, I think we do have to say, whether it was Martin who said it earlier, I'm not sure, but actually these are sort of, when you think about the numbers that goes on in the game, it's not as if this is happening all the time, but it's happening far too much than what it should do. And again, the parents have to absolutely have a look at themselves. This is not professional football. This is just their little Johnny or little Jane who should be going out, real understanding from a physical level. It's great exercise, but from a mental level and psychological level, how to work in a team. If their role model, we're talking about role models, it should be their parents first and foremost, are acting like that, then what chance have the kids got?
The number of messages that come in this evening with people saying that they've witnessed children being called by adults a see you next Tuesday has been staggering. You know, you don't want to read messages out like that, especially if they've got coarse language in. But so many of you have witnessed children being verbally abused, some even physically abused by adults. That is incredible to me. Because at that stage, you're looking at it, I haven't got kids now, but if it happens one day, I'm like, should I be taking them to join a sports team? Or what are we going to do? We're going to do athletics and hope that no one abuses you when you're running 200 meters, I don't know, whatever it is. Like, do we need to be on our own? Should we do tennis? Or is there any arena that I can take them to where they're going to be treated well? You know, that's actually, when I read those messages, I'm so taken aback by it, to the point where I'm like, why take your kids back to that environment? That's how I look at it. It shouldn't be that way.
Well, it's interesting that it's only Ian we've had, and we've been going on for, an hour and 40 minutes, that have sort of either called in, or I don't know if we've had any texts, to actually admit that they've done it and explain why they've done it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the thing, to try and get inside the head as to why, what switches you when you turn up on a Sunday morning and you watch your boy or girl play football. Of course you want your kids' team to win, but this is not professional football. There's a bigger picture here in terms of what I was just saying, from a social point of view, from a working in a team point of view, and from a physical point of view, fitness as well.
But I've always felt that we've created around football an atmosphere of anger. Because we go to football grounds all the time and we're sitting there in the press box and fans are not too far away and we hear what they're screaming and shouting. And sometimes I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
You see the anger, the frustration. I know fans are passionate, and you're going to tell me it's a professional game and the people on the pitch can't hear you and stuff like that.
No, we can hear.
But it isn't. We can hear. I think there is still a culture around this sport where we view officials like a punching bag.
There shouldn't,
like, it's okay.
But there shouldn't be at Grassroots. I mean, look, I personally think that within legal reason, a fan who pays their hard-earned money to watch a professional footballer can pretty much decide to support or not support, have a go or get behind.
I'm not talking about
what they want.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about extreme comments.
Right.
Where I'm like, why would you say that to anyone? Why would those words come out your mouth? I'm not talking about passionate stuff on the terraces. I get that. I'm talking about abusive things where you're like, why would you say that to any other human being? That's what...
Well, again, I agree. Why would you say that? But at the same time, if you're, we don't know what people's lives are like, and then you come on a Saturday and they see their team. Again, I go back to when I was playing, and when I was going through a bad period and people were giving me stick or whatever, I'm like, do you know what? I've got to handle this. I've got to deal with this because they're paying the hard-earned money to watch that. Now, if you're being extremely abusive,
of a professional, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a line of abusive and illegal way of talking in that, but I'm
talking about abuse.
We're going about
discrimination,
but we're talking about grassroots here. Yeah. This is not professional football. And if your kid is at a professional club, then they will eventually go away from the Sunday football and go towards that. But if they're just the Sunday football and deep down that's not going to happen, I'm sorry. It's even if it is going to happen, you keep your mouth quiet. Simple as that. And I just don't get it, how people can do it. And, it's interesting. We haven't really had a conversation with anyone who's admitted they do it and explain why.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Listen, thank you very much to everyone that got involved with the conversation this evening. Not long left to go. We'll very quickly touch on Donald Trump threatening to move World Cup fixtures straight after this. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT to end the show. To end the show. On Donald Trump, who, by the way, is saying some comments at the moment regarding Israel and Gaza. So if you want to hear that, you can listen to our colleagues over on Talk. At the moment, you're listening to talkSPORT. This is Kickoff with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT. Hugh, Woozencroft and Scott Minto, Chelsea and West Ham, formerly of Charlton as well. Rotherham, Benfica.
President of Orpington Rovers.
And the president of Orpington Rovers as well. Yeah, exactly. Is with me this evening. I remember the Sports Bar coming up. Jason Cundy and Darren Ambrose, a former Newcastle and Crystal Palace winger, with you this evening. They'll be with you from 10 o'clock. So give them a call, 03717 22 3344. We're very quickly. Oh, I should say, Borry, by the way, tomorrow's episode of talkSPORT Daily's podcast will be available from 5 a.m. Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoy will debate whether it's finally time to scrap the Big Six. Plus, they decide on which club could make it a Big Seven. If you want to find out more, tune in to tomorrow's episode of the talkSPORT Daily on all podcast platforms from 5 a.m. if you're an early riser.
And can I just say as well, Ross from Orpington Rovers, one of the top guys there, said it's been brilliant that you have raised the profile of this issue tonight, mate. Just listening to the number of calls and texts you have had. Equally, having you guys talking about it from a professional background in football only adds to this. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for the comments this evening. Hello to everyone who's associated with the Orpington Rovers.
Have I mentioned them enough tonight?
Right, let's talk Donald Trump.
That's a hell of a switch.
Yeah, I know. Try not to bring politics into sport. He seems to be unable to keep himself out of it, of course. And next year, the World Cup going to the United States, Canada and Mexico. He's threatened this week to relocate World Cup matches that are set to be played in Boston. 6 games should be taking place there next summer, but he suggested that parts of Boston have been taken over by recent unrest. Gillette Stadium in Foxborough set to stage 7 games, as the US co-hosts the World Cup. World Cup sites aren't actually up to Donald Trump. The 11 US cities plus 3 in Mexico, 2 in Canada are all actually contracted with FIFA, which would face significant logistical and legal issues if it were to make changes in the 8 months before the June the 11th kickoff next summer. My view on it is this is a time that Gianni Infantino should actually be coming out to say we're not going to move any games. That's what I find weird. I mean, it was weird to see him with all the world leaders. Just a really weird thing that happened.
He was part of the ceasefire, wasn't he?
That was just the most incredible. Like, he was shaking hands with world leaders and we were rejoicing a ceasefire in the Middle East. We know how horrific things that have happened over the last few years have been there. Should have been a joyous moment. Then suddenly Gianni Infantino gets up there and it's like, what is going on here? It was surreal. It was dystopian. But I think, listen, he seems to have a good relationship with Donald Trump.
Yeah, very good.
But I do think he is still the head of world football and he still needs to draw the line under certain things. He's left it to his second in command to come out recently and say, we're not going to do that. But actually, I think when you've got Donald Trump, and he did quote him, he said, Gianni's a good guy, and if I want to move games, I'll talk to him, and I'm sure he will. That's not right. We don't want the World Cup to be used in that political way by anyone. And I know it's become very political. We see where it's been over the last few incarnations of the World Cup. It is clearly now being used as a political tool. And Gianni Infantino is probably responsible for most of that. But still, people are booking flights. People are booking hotels. People want to go and see a game. It's a lifelong dream for some people. They don't want to be booking flights to Boston and suddenly realise. I get it in an emergency situation. That's for any city anywhere in the world. You're not going to hold a match somewhere that's going to put the spectators in danger. And if he's making that statement because he feels like in 8 months' time it will be that situation, then he can clearly see into the future. My point is, at this stage, he shouldn't be making comments like that.
I'll choose my words carefully here because I don't particularly trust Gianni Infantino at all. I mean, what was he doing there? Trying to be part of, an incredible moment really in time. We have to wait and see whether we do actually get peace or not, but we've got a ceasefire for now. And yet he's somehow getting involved, which tells me that probably if Donald Trump wanted him to do it, truthfully, really, he might find a way. Now, I don't think that will be the case. I think Donald Trump is just coming out and just, he says a lot of things, doesn't he, to be fair? And he doesn't always mean everything. But I think, again, he's just sending out maybe a political message to people within the United States. It's not going to change. And I'm sure that ultimately that won't happen. Now, the question is he doing it for a political reason or is he doing it because there's a genuine possible problem that's coming up? And if there is a genuine possible problem in terms of, a safety issue, then I think he's right to at least highlight that. The question is there? Yeah. And of that, I have no idea.
You got a couple of minutes to call in if you're in Boston and you want to tell us how safe or not it is. In the meantime, let's go to Ian Abrahams, who fingers crossed is safe and well.
All finished here, Hugh. It finished Chelsea 4, Paris FC 0. A couple of goals in each half. First was a very generous penalty award to Chelsea. Sandy Baltimore put the ball away from the penalty spot. When Newskin went down, nobody appealed, but VAR got involved, sent the referee to the screen. The rest, as they say, is history. Thompson cross from the left-hand side for Wrighty Cannerid to head in the second before half-time from 12 yards out. And in the second half, Thompson got her goal, ball in from Walsh right-hand side. Didn't manage to find Beaver Jones, but it was stabbed home by Thompson. The last Chelsea goal corner headed 3 yards out by Sam Kerr. It actually was stopped on the line and forced home by Erin Cuthbert. A job well done in the end by Chelsea. It finished here Chelsea 4, Paris FC 0.
Someone's very angry with us.
Go on.
They're taking the mickey out of Donald. Someone they must know him very well. They've just called him Donald. I assume they mean Donald Trump. We don't have to do that for him. He very much allows himself to be a comical figure at times. Listen, it's funny. What can you say? You know, he's a guy that puts himself. He likes to say funny things. He was a TV star. Well, you know, he's entertaining.
Yeah, he's
at times. You know?
And he's got a lot of business done. Whether you like him, whether you don't, there's certain things that that a lot of other people are not able to achieve.
Yeah. The only thing that I'd say, and this person says, you know, it's just making sure everyone's safe, but only in cities run by political opponents. You know, what you have to understand is the United States is a safe country, and I'm sure everyone's going to have a great time there, but there are a number of cities across the US that face similar issues to Boston in terms of what's gone on, protests and stuff like that. You know, there are many, many cities in the US affected by crime and stuff like that. We're not going to not go to Los Angeles. We're not going to not go to New York or Chicago at the World Cup next year, because they will host fantastic games. It will be an amazing place to visit for all of the fans everywhere in the world. Many, many places on earth have their own issues politically. It doesn't stand in the way of us seeing football in all of those places, including here in the UK, France, Germany, wherever. You know, even matches that we saw at the World Cup, when we went to Africa, when we went to the Middle East. And I think it will go off without a hitch, fingers crossed.
I'd be very surprised if one game was moved, Hugh. I think it's just a message he's kind of sending out. And obviously it's, you know, it is a democratic, or they are democratic places, but maybe that's because those people in those don't like the way he's coming across and what his agenda is. And that's the only reason why it's democratic. So look, if it's a safety issue, he's entitled to do it. If he's just saying it, I'm sure Gianni Infantino will just get away from making sure there's nothing going on in the Middle East to make sure that it's okay in the US.
Can you imagine the scenes? Donald Trump handing over the World Cup next summer to Harry Kane on the podium celebrating.
Let's not go there, mate. Let's not go there. A long way off from there.
As ever, it's been absolutely fantastic to spend the evening with you, Scott Minto. Really, really appreciate it. And once again, for all of you that got in touch regarding our conversation on grassroots officiating, clearly there is work to be done, but clearly some of you are very well aware of that and are trying your absolute best. So thank you to all of you who are bringing the right attitude, the right atmosphere for our young kids and young officials in grassroots football. It is very much appreciated. Really thank you for being with us this evening. The Sports Bar coming up next. Give them a call, 03717 223344. Jason Cundy and Darren Ambrose will be with you straight after this.